Chapter 2016. 2016. In 2016, I returned. Lord God, Lord Lightwing's might is like a prison. His appearance this time will definitely be able to suppress everything. In the South Pole graveyard, Sui Yang respectfully prostrated in front of God Lord Lightwing and shouted loudly. The divine light tiger in front of him was God Lord Lightwing, a supreme expert who had been in charge of this starry sky hundreds of thousands of years ago. God Lord Lightwing's name had once shaken an entire star field. During that great battle, the gods had fallen, and many eternal god masters had also fallen. However, the divine Lightwing master at that time had made all the preparations in advance. Before he died, he had left behind a trace of divine blood, waiting for the day of his resurrection. Unfortunately, the silence on earth and the disappearance of spiritual energy had not allowed him to recover. He had only obtained this opportunity after hundreds of thousands of years. In this star field, the god lords have all fallen. Only I have been resurrected. Even if I have only recovered 1/10 of my strength, it is still not something that other creatures can compare to. I want to recover my former glory. The god lord of light wings stood on the top of the sacred mountain, his gaze sweeping over everything around him. This time, the recovery of the spiritual energy on this planet is a little strange. There are quite a few gods that have been resurrected. If I want to reach the peak again, I will need a large number of resources and subordinate. As he spoke, he looked down at Sui Yang. Go and investigate how many gods and experts there are on this planet. After that, I will open up my eternal divine kingdom and recruit disciples. The God Lord of Light Wings said indifferently. His eyes were filled with endless majesty. If you don't step into my divine mansion, I will kill you and turn you into resources to recover my strength. I will prepare to step into the boundless star field. When Sui Yang heard God Lord Lightwing's words, his heart trembled slightly. However, his face was filled with excitement. Lord God Lord, when you step into the boundless star area, I will convince all the gods in the Fire God Palace to join you. He immediately said loudly, Yes, I will not mistreat you. God Lord Lightwing said to him. Thank you, Lord God Lord. Flintstone crept more reverently. After a moment of hesitation, he said, Lord God, my brothers and sisters from the Fire God Palace have descended to earth. Now, they have all been killed by the Dragon King. I, Sui Yang, have luckily escaped with my life. I hope that you will allow me to kill the person who killed my brothers and sisters. Yes. God Lord Guangyi nodded and waved his arm. Roar, roar, roar. Many divine tigers condensed from light energy flew over and landed behind Sui Yang. 5 divine tigers condensed from light divine pearls. The strongest one has the strength of 6 wisps of divine fire. For have the strength of 5 wisps of divine fire. They are enough for you to kill all your enemies. Go. 2 days later, I will open up my divine kingdom and recruit all the experts into my divine kingdom to worship. God Lord Guangyi's imposing voice resounded in the surroundings. Thank you, God Lord. In the future, my life will be yours. Sui Yang shouted loudly. He lowered his head and revealed a savage expression. Go. God Lord Guangyi said indifferently. He turned around and leaped lightly, stepping onto another divine mountain. Half. Sui Yan's breathing quickened as he stood up. He looked at the 5 divine tigers of light behind him, his face burning with passion. 5 divine tigers of light. The strongest one is comparable to 6 wisps of divine fire. Dragon King, this time, I'm going to dismember the 5 of you. As he spoke, his face was filled with a sinister expression. He leaped and directly jumped onto the divine tiger of light in the middle. Let's go. Follow me to receive the world's worship and listen to the screams of those damned people. Ha ha. Sui Yang laughed loudly. The 500-meter-long divine light tigers leaped lightly and flew towards the location outside the eternal divine kingdom. Around the South Pole divine tomb, even though this divine tomb had appeared for more than a year, not a single person had entered it. There were still millions of people searching nearby. They were looking forward to the day when they could enter the divine tomb and obtain opportunities. Especially after everyone on Earth had witnessed Chen Feiyang's strength. Chen Feiyang was originally a small figure at the insightful void level. It was because he had obtained the inheritance of the eternal God Lord that he was now awe-inspiring in the entire world. They also hoped that they could obtain the inheritance of the eternal God Lord. Sigh, we've been searching here for half a month, but there are still no clues. We don't dare to go to the Stairs of Light either. In the past year, dozens of demigod-level experts have died on the Stairs of Light. At the entrance of the South Pole Divine Tomb, more than 10 people looked at the Stairs of Light helplessly. This was the entrance of the Divine Tomb, but even gods couldn't enter it. Ha, I'm back. At this moment, a cold laughter sounded. The voice wasn't very loud. If it wasn't at the entrance to the god's tomb, this voice wouldn't have been heard. Oh! It's the voice from inside the god's tomb. At this moment, the dozen or so people at the entrance were slightly stunned. They immediately looked inside the god's tomb. Some people around also heard this voice and looked over in astonishment. There are figures coming out. Suddenly, a young man shouted excitedly. At the entrance of the divine tomb, 500-meter-tall figures slowly walked out. Under the cover of the light, the 5 figures looked dignified. It's 5 divine tigers. There's someone on top of the divine tigers. There's actually a person. When the 5 divine tigers walked down the stairs, everyone's faces were filled with awe. When they saw the figure on top of the divine tigers, their eyes widened, filled with shock. Wang. At this moment, everyone saw the 5 divine tigers suddenly increase their speed, appearing in front of the 10+ people. At this moment, the dozen people were completely stunned. Their bodies trembled as they knelt on the ground and looked at the 5 terrifying godly tigers in front of them in shock. Where is the Dragon King? At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. Immediately after, the dozen people felt that their bodies were suspended in the air. The dozen people's faces were filled with shock. When they saw Suiyan's face, their faces were slightly shocked. Sir Suiyang, the Dragon King is in the Dragon Palace, in the Dragon Palace. The dozen or so people hurriedly replied. Dragon Palace? What is the Dragon Palace? Suiyang slightly narrowed his eyes and asked coldly. Sir, it's in the ocean. The dozen or so people immediately said, their foreheads full of cold sweat. At the same time, their hearts were extremely shocked. Suiyang, everyone knew that the gods who had descended back then, the strongest person in the Fire God Palace. More than a year ago, he was suppressed by the Dragon King's subordinates in the South Pole Divine Tomb. Suiyang carried the divine weapon and rushed to the sky above the divine tomb. Everyone thought that he was dead, but they didn't expect that Suiyang was still alive. Could it be that he had received the God Lord's inheritance in the South Pole Divine Tomb? Chapter 2017. 2017, I return from the divine tomb. Ocean. Suiyang narrowed his eyes flashing with a crazy killing intent. No matter where you are, I will kill your Dragon King today. I will kill all of your relatives one by one, he growled in a low voice with a sinister face. When the more than 10 people who were suspended in the air heard his voice, their faces were filled with shock. He actually wanted to kill the Dragon King. He had come back to take revenge. Show me the way. Suiyang waved his arm, and a ball of flame enveloped the dozen or so people. The 5 divine light tigers beneath him immediately soared tens of thousands of meters into the air. But suddenly, when he looked to the east, his expression changed slightly. In the void in the east, the once incomparably eye-catching Lingxiao treasured palace was now in tatters. The divine light on it had completely disappeared. What happened to the Lingxiao treasured palace? Suiyan's eyes flickered as he asked the dozen or so people in front of him. My lord, the Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall have all been destroyed by the Dragon King. Now, in the entire earth, the Dragon King's Dragon Palace is the strongest force. They have 20 to 30 godly state expert. Even a group of true dragon sons of heaven have submitted to the Dragon King. The dozen or so people didn't dare to hide anything and immediately said to him, What? 20 to 30 godly state expert subordinates? Suiyang was slightly stunned, and a trace of solemnity appeared on his face. Then how strong are the Dragon King and the others? He immediately asked with a gloomy face. We don't know. We only know that the Dragon King is very, very strong, but we don't know exactly how strong he is. The dozen or so people shook their heads. Their knowledge had not reached such a level yet, so they did not know exactly how strong the Dragon King and the others were. Other than the Dragon King, are there any other forces? Sui Yan's face darkened as he continued to ask. Yes, one is Chen Feiyang, the successor of the North Pole God Tomb Mountain's God Lord. His strength is very terrifying. The other is the Dragon Gate Academy, which has 4 gods. However, the founder of the Dragon Gate Academy is the Dragon King's disciple, Xiao Ran. Currently, the Dragon King's strength is basically invincible. The subordinates of the Dragon King are also very powerful. Shut up. As the dozen or so people spoke, the expression on Sui Yan's face became even gloomier. With an embarrassed expression, he roared in a low voice and waved his hand. Buzz! A ball of flame directly penetrated the bodies of the dozen or so people, turning them into ashes in an instant. He didn't even let out a miserable cry. I didn't expect that your Dragon King would actually destroy the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and the Sacred Hall. Back then, Yuan Kuei of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace and Luke Owen of the Sacred Hall were about the same strength as me. Even if they had broken through, they would still have 5 wisps of divine fire. If the Dragon King and the others were able to destroy Lingxiao and the Sacred Hall, they would definitely have the strength of 6 wisps of divine fire. There's also an inheritor of the God Lord. Hehe, this really surprised me. If I were to take revenge, it might really be a little difficult. Unfortunately, you've met the God Lord Lightwing, the true eternal God Lord. Dragon King? The inheritor of the God Lord. In front of the eternal God Lord, all of you will die. Sui Yan's expression was incomparably malevolent as he roared in a low voice. The Dragon King's strength made him very surprised. Right now, he didn't even dare to guarantee that he would be able to kill the Dragon King. However, there was still the God Lord. With the God Lord backing him, the Dragon King would definitely die. Even if I can't kill you with my own hands right now, I'll still let you feel the pain. Dragon King, welcome my revenge, haha. He laughed ferociously and moved. With a wave of his arm, several tens of thousands of meters below him, the young men who were looking at him in shock were instantly pulled over by a terrifying force. Sir, don't kill us, don't kill us. The 3 young men were caught and their faces instantly revealed expressions of fear. They immediately begged for mercy loudly. Bring me to Dragon Gate Academy, Sui Yang said coldly. Yes, 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 sir. The 3 young men hurriedly nodded in fear and pointed in the direction of Dragon Gate Academy. Go. Sui Yang rode on the divine tiger of light and immediately flew in the direction of Longmen Academy. That god Sui Yang from the throne of the Fire God Palace actually came out of the South Pole Divine Tomb. What's going on? Did he obtain the inheritance of the South Pole Divine Tomb? My god, what's he going to do? Take revenge on the Dragon King or something? The strongest person from the throne of the Fire God Palace actually came out of the Divine Tomb. The divine tigers under him feel so terrifying. When Sui Yang disappeared, everyone around the Divine Tomb was discussing in shock. The strongest expert of the Fire God Palace had actually walked out of the Divine Tomb, riding on the incomparably terrifying Divine Tiger. What opportunities had he obtained in the Divine Tomb? Had he also obtained the inheritance of the Eternal God Lord? Everyone in the surroundings was in an uproar. At the same time, this news quickly spread to the internet. Mengxian, I've created a divine kingdom for you during this period of time. Let me tell you, this divine kingdom is definitely much better than the divine kingdom of an ordinary god. You'll be able to become a god soon. At this moment, Chen Feiyang walked into an office in the Dragon Gate Academy with a smile on his face and said to Liu Mengxian, "Thank you, but there's no need. I've already gathered the materials needed to create a divine kingdom in the ancient land. It's fine, it's fine. The materials you've collected are a little lacking. The divine kingdom I've helped you build is much better than the one you've built yourself. After all, a divine kingdom affects the strength of a god." Chen Feiyang licked his face as he leaned over and said with a smile. Liu Mengxian looked at him speechlessly. At the same time, she also felt that it was a little funny. The Chen Feiyang in front of her was the successor of an eternal god lord. In the future, He had a 70% chance of stepping into the eternal Godlord realm. He was an invincible expert who could suppress an entire region. However, such an expert chased after her every day. She didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At the same time, she had a different feeling in her heart. Boom. Boom. At this moment, the entire space suddenly trembled slightly. A terrifying pressure charged towards them. Liu Mengxian was slightly stunned. She immediately looked outside. Chen Feiyang also raised his eyebrows, his face filled with astonishment. Mengxian, don't be afraid. I'll protect you, he said with a laugh, then immediately flew out of the office with Liu Mengxian. The two flew out, and in the surroundings, Xiao Ran, Ji Lingfei, and the others also flew out. At this moment, the two looked towards the south. What happened? Did Earth encounter another terrifying calamity? The expressions of everyone in River City changed slightly. The terrifying pressure caused their bodies to tremble. Everyone looked towards the south. Roar roar. At this moment, a roar sounded from the south. Everyone looked over in shock. 5 divine tigers appeared in everyone's sight. That is, Xiao Ran and the rest were slightly shocked. Their gazes were fixed on the 5 divine tigers and the figure on top of the divine tiger. I have returned from the divine tomb to take revenge. All the people of the Dragon King must die. At this moment, Sui Yang slowly stood up on top of the divine light tiger and stepped on the tiger's head. Chapter 2018. 2018 Sui Yang vs Flying Dust. I have returned from the tomb of the gods to take revenge. All the people of the Dragon King must die. When Sui Yan's voice reverberated through the entire sky, everyone was slightly shocked. He stood on the head of the divine light tiger and stared coldly at Longmen Academy in front of him. When everyone in Jiang City heard this voice, they were very surprised. Especially when the 5 divine tigers approached and saw Sui Yang who was standing on the tiger's head, they all revealed astonished expressions. I returned from the god tomb? That's the strongest expert in the Fire God Palace. He actually didn't die. It's Sui Yang. Back then, he carried a divine weapon and desperately rushed into the South Pole God tomb. In the end, the divine weapon exploded. I didn't expect that he actually didn't die. The 5 divine tigers beside him have such a terrifying aura. Hiss, could it be that he has obtained the Godlord's inheritance? That divine light tiger's aura is so terrifying. Heavens, he's here for revenge. He's here to seek revenge on the Dragon King. He wants to kill all of the Dragon King's people. When everyone heard that incomparably cold voice and looked at Sui Yang who was standing on the tiger's head, they instantly recognized his identity. The strongest person in the throne room of the Fire God Palace. Returning from the divine tomb, taking revenge on the Dragon King. When everyone saw this scene, their expressions changed slightly. Xiao Ran, Ji Lingfei, and the others stared intently at Sui Yang, their expressions changing drastically. The strongest person in the throne room of the Fire God Palace had the strength of 4 wisps of divine fire in the past. Even if there was no increase in strength, it was still not something they could deal with. Oh no, that expert in the throne room of the Fire God Palace is very strong. Liu Mengxian's expression changed slightly when she saw this scene. You've returned from the divine tomb. Don't worry, Mengxian. With me here, even if he returns from hell, I can still send him back. Chen Feiyang narrowed his eyes slightly. His gaze swept over Sui Yang as he said to Liu Mengxian. You. Liu Mengxian looked at Chen Feiyang. She opened her mouth slightly to thank him, but in the end, she did not say it out loud. Chen Feiyang indeed had the strength to protect them. Disciple of the Dragon King, come out and face your death. Sui Yang stood on the divine light tiger. His body was filled with killing intent as he looked at Xiao Ran, Ji Lingfei, and Chen Feiyang in the sky. Face your death. If you want to take revenge on my master, you might be the one to face your death. When Xiao Ran heard his words, he raised his head, stared at him, and roared. Ha ha ha, looks like you are the Dragon King's disciple. Then die. I heard that this is the Dragon King's former residence. Today, not only will I kill you, I will also wipe out the entire city. I want to let the Dragon King know that my revenge is not something he can endure. Sui Yan's gaze locked onto Xiao Ran. A wild killing intent appeared on his face as he roared. "Kill him!" He ordered the 4 divine light tigers beside him. Roar, 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 roar. At this moment, the 4 divine light tigers let out a furious roar. Their bodies emitted an icy cold aura as they pounced towards Xiao Ran. Sui Yang did not hesitate at all. He immediately attacked when they met. One could imagine how much hatred and anger he had towards the Dragon King over the past year. "TSK, TSK, TSK. You're from the Divine Tomb, and I happen to be from the Divine Tomb as well. You dare to touch my brother-in-law? You're courting death." Chen Feiyang saw the 4 divine tigers of light attacking Xiao Ran. Naturally, he could not hesitate at this moment. His body moved, and with a wave of his hand, 4 thick mountains that were thousands of meters in size appeared in front of him. Boom! With a wave of his arm, the 4 thick mountains smashed towards the 4 divine tigers of light. Roar, 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 roar. The 4 divine tigers saw the mountains and their faces revealed roaring expressions. The power of light on their bodies intensified and they opened up their huge tigers MAW. One by one, light bullets flew towards the mountains. Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, a terrifying explosion sounded in the sky and the entire space shook. However, the mountain did not have the slightest ripple under the attacks of the 4 divine tigers of light. It continued to collide towards the divine tigers. Bang, bang, bang. A series of violent collisions caused the light on the bodies of the 4 divine lords of light to tremble violently. Their bodies flew backwards for over 10,000 meters. "What? Who are you?" When he saw the 4 divine tigers fly backwards, Sui Yan's pupils constricted slightly. His expression was grave as he stared at Chen Feiyang. "Mountain God's main inheritor, Chen Feiyang, since you came out from the South Pole Divine Tomb, then let us have a competition. I want to see what you are capable of." Chen Feiyang's gaze swept past Sui Yang and the group of divine tigers of light, and a cold smile appeared on his face. This time, he did not feel the slightest threat from Sui Yang. He was certain that the other party was absolutely not his opponent. This was the strong premonition of his mountain physique. The inheritor of the North Pole Divine Tomb? Sui Yan's expression changed slightly when he heard his words. Immediately after, a stern expression appeared on his face. "I, Sui Yang, am the spokesperson of the Eternal God Lord. It is best for an inheritor like you not to participate in this. Otherwise, you will die without even knowing how you died." Spokesperson, haha, interesting, interesting. Today, I am participating in this. What can you do to me? I would like to know whether it is my Mountain Godlord's inheritance or your South Pole Godlord's spokesperson who is more powerful. Chen Feiyang laughed out loud. His body trembled slightly and his body slowly grew bigger. Very soon, Chen Feiyang, who was as tall as a mountain, stood proudly in the void and stared coldly at Sui Yang. You are playing with fire and setting yourself on fire." Sui Yang felt the aura from Chen Feiyang's body and his expression changed slightly as he shouted out sternly, "Let me see how powerful your South Pole God Tomb spokesperson is." Chen Feiyang revealed a savage expression on his face. His body moved, and like a meteorite, he directly attacked towards Sui Yang. "Divine Light Tiger, kill him, kill him." Sui Yan's pupils constricted, and he immediately ordered the 5 divine light tigers to attack Chen Feiyang. The 5 divine tigers, especially the one under him, directly pounced towards Chen Feiyang. In mid-air, its body grew to about 10,000 meters in size, and its huge mouth bit towards Chen Feiyang. "Be careful." Liu Mengxin's expression changed slightly when she saw this scene, and she immediately shouted, "Haha." Chen Feiyang heard her words and laughed loudly. He clenched his fist tightly and smashed it towards the divine light tiger. At the instant he attacked, an incomparably terrifying mountain formed in front of his fist and smashed towards the top of the divine tiger's head. Boom! 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 Chen Feiyang, who had unleashed his full strength, had the strength to suppress the 7 wisps of divine fire god. When the mountain landed on the divine light tiger, the terrifying mountain power caused the divine light tiger's light power to dissipate. The divine light pearl in the middle of the tiger's head began to dim. "Haha, with your strength, you still want to kill the Dragon King for revenge? You have to have the strength of me at the very least. Chen Feiyang looked at the collapsing divine light tiger's arm and took out the divine light pearl with his mountain-like palm. While laughing, he didn't forget to show off. Chapter 2019. 2019. In 2019, the God Lord had appeared, and Chen Feiyang had fallen. Boom! In the sky above Jiang City, a tremor sounded, and everyone raised their heads to look. Chen Feiyang, who was thousands of meters tall, gave off an invincible aura, and the 10,000-meter-tall divine light tiger was defeated with a single punch. The divine light pearl was held in his hand, and the divine light tiger instantly collapsed. At this moment, he didn't need to say anything to show off, but he was indeed awesome. His invincible stance was extremely shocking. On Earth today, many people already believed that Chen Feiyang had the strength that was comparable to the Dragon Palace. It was the strength of the entire Dragon Palace, not the strength of the Dragon King alone. In fact, in the eyes of many people, the Dragon King's strength wasn't very strong. In fact, he might not even have ignited the divine fire yet. Of course, this was only the opinion of the outside world. After all, Wang Xian had never shown his strength. The last time when Chen Feiyang was subdued, due to the coverage of the space locusts and Xiaolan's Kuan region, no one knew what exactly happened. In addition, Chen Feiyang often acted pretentious. This made many people come up with this view that was accepted by most people. What? The god of Light Tiger, which is comparable to the god of 6 wisps of divine fire, was actually defeated in an instant. When Sui Yang saw that the strongest god of Light Tiger was defeated by a single punch, a shocked expression appeared on his face. Defeating the god of light, who was comparable to the god of 6 wisps of divine fire with a single punch, this. How could his strength be so terrifying? That god tiger is comparable to the god of 6 wisps of divine fire. My god, this. Chen Feiyang's strength is so terrifying. Hiss, even though we have already witnessed the terror of Chen Feiyang's god, killing a divine tiger that is comparable to 6 wisps of divine fire with a single punch is still extremely shocking. That Sui Yang is completely incapable. Even if he entered the South Pole Divine Tomb, he still doesn't seem to be Chen Feiyang's match. It seems that he hasn't obtained the inheritance of the eternal god. Chen Feiyang is awesome. One after another, shocked discussions sounded from below. Everyone raised their heads and stared intently at this great battle. With your strength, you still dare to come and kill my brother-in-law and the others? Chen Feiyang saw the shocked Sui Yang and the corner of his mouth slightly curled up. He shouted somewhat shamelessly. When he heard these words, the faces of Xiao Ran, Liu Mengxian, and the others turned black. His gaze swept past the 4 god lords of light around him. His body shook, and 6 mountains flew out from all directions. They directly pressed down on the last 4 god lords of light. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The 4 god tigers of light were trapped by the mountains, and were directly pressed down from all directions. Roar, 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 roar. For sounds that seemed to be filled with terror rang out. Chen Feiyang extended his arm, and a huge palm directly put the god pearls of light into his bag. His gaze turned to Sui Yang, and his face was filled with a mocking expression. This. What a huge gap. The gap is too huge. Sui Yang had just walked out of the divine tomb, and now has met Chen Feiyang. He's completely dumbfounded. Haha, I'm dying of laughter. I was still thinking of taking revenge on the Dragon King, but in the end, I wanted to kill Xiao Ran and the others, but I was suppressed by Chen Feiyang. From below, everyone was watching this scene mockingly. Sui Yang, who had returned from the divine tomb, was still thinking of killing all the people of the Dragon King. In the end, he met Chen Feiyang, who was currently pursuing the Dragon King's disciple and sister-in-law. It was a tragedy in an instant. You dared to kill those divine tigers of light. You're finished. You're finished. When Sui Yang saw that all the divine lords of light were easily killed, a trace of fear appeared on his face. No matter what, he had never thought that this would be the case. He had obtained a huge opportunity from the divine tomb. Originally, he had wanted to suppress the Dragon King, but in the end, he realized that the Dragon King's strength might not be something he could deal with. He wanted to make a move on the Dragon King's family. However, on this side, he had encountered a tough nut to crack. This. He He was a little frightened and wanted to vomit blood. This time, he had brought the 5 divine tigers of light that the divine Lord had given him. TSK, TSK, the one who is finished is you. You can go and die too. Suiyen's figure moved and directly attacked Suiyang. A 5-fingered mountain pressed down towards him. Not good, escape. Seeing the 5-fingered mountain, his expression changed drastically. He hurriedly turned around and wanted to flee into the distance. You want to escape from my 5-finger mountain? Chen Feiyang said disdainfully. The 5-finger mountain pressed down on him. No, no. If you dare to kill me, the God Lord will not let you off. God Lord Guangyi will make you wish you were dead. Suiyang felt the threat of death coming from the 5-finger mountain in the sky. He shouted in fear. God Lord Guangyi? Chen Feiyang was slightly stunned when he heard this name. The 5-finger mountain in the sky froze slightly. God Lord Lightwing, TSK, TSK, I want to see how a God Lord who has been dead for hundreds of thousands of years won't let me off, haha. However, soon, a faint smile appeared on his face. According to the inheritance, he knew that God Lord Lightwing was an existence comparable to the mountain God Lord. However, in the inheritance, God Lord Lightwing had died even earlier than the mountain God Lord. Die. With a light shout, the terrifying mountain landed on Suiyen's body. Wang. At this moment, a light spot on his chest suddenly shone brightly. The light spot covered his entire body and blocked the mountain's attack. It seems that you still obtained some treasures in the divine tomb, Chen Feiyang said indifferently as he raised his other hand and pressed downwards once more. Boom. A powerful shockwave crashed against the light barrier on his body. At this moment, Suiyen's expression changed drastically as he spat out large mouthfuls of blood. The current him was only able to ignite 5 wisps of divine fire. He was not Chen Feiyang's match at all. In fact, he did not even have the strength to resist. Pu. Sensing that the light barrier was about to collapse, Suiyen's face turned pale and malevolent. Chen Feiyang, just you wait. Very soon, the Lord God will kill you. Very soon, just you wait. A shrill voice came from Suiyen's mouth. Under the protection of the remaining light barrier, a drop of his divine blood directly fled in the direction of the South Pole God tomb. Hey! Chen Feiyang slightly raised his eyebrows when he saw that the divine blood had escaped. With a wave of his arm, a mountain appeared out of thin air in front of the divine blood. Bang! However, the power of light directly pierced through the mountain, carrying his divine blood and continuing to rush towards the south. You can escape the first day of the Lunar New Year, but you can't escape the 15th day. Wait until my strength increases a little more, and I'll directly overturn your South Pole divine tomb. Chen Feiyang saw that a drop of Suiyen's divine blood had completely escaped, so he didn't pay too much attention to it. He spoke with confidence. So God Suiyang is finished just like that. It's simply too tragic. Haha, last time, I was suppressed by the Dragon King's subordinates. This time, I originally obtained a huge opportunity. After returning from the divine tomb and meeting God Chen Feiyang, I was once again suppressed. I only managed to escape a drop of divine blood. This fellow can be called the most unlucky person to have such an opportunity. Everyone in Jiang City laughed and discussed when they saw that Suiyang was on the verge of death. Unlucky fellow. Chapter 2020. 2020 God Lord came out, Chen Feiyang fell too. That's right, I got 5 God Pearls of Light. These God Pearls of Light can be compared to divine artifacts. To light attribute cultivators, they are incomparably huge treasures. In the sky above Jiang City's Dragon Gate Academy, Chen Feiyang looked at the 5 God Pearls of Light in his hand, and a smile appeared on his face. Mengxin, come, come. With these God Pearls of Light, you can use them to build your divine kingdom, and even nurture them into divine artifacts. They can double your strength. As he spoke, he walked to Liu Mengxin's side with a smile and handed over a few divine pearls of light. Pay attention to your words in the future. Chimpate. Liu Mengxin was very dissatisfied with Chen Feiyang's way of addressing her brother. She snorted coldly. Hee. Chen Feiyang smiled and did not say anything. Xiao Ran, who was at the side, saw this scene. He smiled faintly and did not ask any more questions. If he had a lot of opinions about Chen Feiyang in the beginning, he no longer had any opinions about Chen Feiyang now. The God Lord that Sui Yang mentioned won't really exist, right? Now that a god has resurrected, will a God Lord also resurrect? At this moment, Ji Lingfei, who was by the side, said with a slight frown. No. According to the inheritance I obtained, the battle between God Lords is even more intense than that of ordinary gods. More than 10 God Lords have all fallen, Chen Feiyang said indifferently, not caring at all. At most, some people had obtained the inheritance of the South Pole God Tomb. However, even if someone had really obtained the inheritance of the South Pole God Lord, he was not afraid at all. Back then, the Mountain God Lord's strength was among the top among the God Lords. Even if there really was a God Lord's inheritor, he was not afraid at all. That's good. Ji Lingfei and the others nodded slightly and looked in the direction of the South Pole Divine Tomb. Give me some time. When the time comes, I'll break open that divine tomb with my powerful strength. Chen Feiyang also looked towards the south with a proud expression. Damn it, damn it. However, at this moment, in the sky above the South Pole Divine Tomb, a drop of divine blood drew a bright trail under the protection of the light shield and quickly rushed towards the divine tomb. In the center of the light shield, a human figure formed by a drop of blood roared with a ferocious expression. I want the Lord God to kill you all. I want to kill all of you. Not a single one of you will be left alive. The Lord God's successor? You are just a successor. You are courting death. The divine blood was trembling violently, filled with thick blood and resentment. Buzz. He rushed into the divine tomb and immediately flew towards the center of the eternal divine kingdom. On the divine mountain at the center of the mountain, God Lord Guangyi stood there and stared at Sui Yang, who was flying towards him. When the divine tigers of light were killed, he had already sensed something. When he saw that Sui Yang was only left with a drop of divine blood, God Lord Guangyi's expression did not change at all. Lord God Lord, Lord God Lord, you must avenge this lowly one. Sui Yang flew over and shouted with a shrill voice. What happened? 6 light God Lords were killed. Who did you offend? God Lord Lightwing stared coldly at Sui Yan's divine blood and asked. Lord God Lord, it was the inheritor of the North Pole Divine Tomb. It was him. I wanted to take revenge on the Dragon King, but I met the inheritor of the North Pole Divine Tomb. All 5 light God Lords were killed by him. I only have 1 drop of divine blood left, and I escaped with the protection you gave me. Lord God, you have to avenge me. Sui Yang floated there and shouted miserably. The inheritor of the North Pole Divine Tomb? The inheritor of the Mountain God Lord? That mountain guy's mountain body is very terrifying. He is just an inheritor. Is there any more news? God Lord Lightwing raised his head slightly, but his face didn't change at all. Lord God Lord, currently, there are only 3 forces in the entire planet, the Dragon Palace, the Dragon Gate Academy, and the inheritor of the North Pole God Tomb. The leader of the Dragon Palace, the Dragon King, is the culprit who killed our senior and junior brothers. Sui Yang immediately reported. The God Lord of Light Wings didn't say anything, but slowly walked forward. Lord God Lord, you want to go? Sui Yang saw the God Lord of Light Wings walk toward the exit of the Divine Kingdom, and he was stunned. Open the eternal Divine Kingdom, the God Lord of Light Wings said and looked in Sui Yan's direction. Buzz. A ball of light enveloped Sui Yan's divine blood and condensed a light void body for him. Take me to the Mountain God Lord's successor, the God Lord of Light Wings ordered Sui Yang. It's the God Lord. Sui Yan's eyes flashed with excitement and he immediately pointed in the direction. Wang. The God Lord of Light Wings did not rush over immediately. He came to the exit of the Divine Kingdom and a vast wave of light power spread out in all directions. Roar. At this moment, in the entire Eternal Divine Kingdom, 20 to 30 divine tigers of light that were formed from light energy spread out in all directions. They raised their heads and roared. Ka. This roar seemed to have turned on a switch. Rays of light shot out in all directions. A gentle amount of light energy spread out in all directions, quickly covering an area of over 10,000 kilometers. What's happening now? Hiss, what's going on? What's going on in this divine tomb? I just received news that God Chen Feiyang killed the Suiyang god who came out of this divine tomb. Everyone's expressions changed greatly as they stared intently at the radiant divine kingdom, their faces filled with shock. The eternal divine kingdom is opening. Roar roar. At this moment, a voice filled with boundless majesty came from within the divine tomb. This voice caused everyone to be slightly shocked. Roar. At this moment, everyone saw an incomparably huge divine tiger with radiant wings flying out from the entrance of the divine kingdom. Its body was several thousand meters in size, and it was different from the divine tiger that was formed from the light attribute floating around the divine tomb. This divine tiger emitted a powerful life force and pressure. Huala. The light-winged divine tiger's eyes indifferently swept across everyone around the eternal kingdom, and its 1,000-meter-large wings spread out. Around the wings, light wings floated around. Wang. Above his head, an incomparably huge divine crown of light slowly appeared. Huala. His wings trembled slightly, and he flew out of the divine kingdom, flying towards the east. God Lord Lightwing didn't say a single word. Only an endless pressure spread out in all directions. Everyone around the divine tomb held their breaths as they watched this scene. Their mouths were slightly agape, and their expressions were filled with shock. This God Lord, who had once again emerged from the divine tomb, was even more terrifying than Suiyang and the others not long ago. What's the situation with that divine light tiger? Its aura is so terrifying. Is it a creature that revived in the divine tomb? Where is it going? When the radiant God Lord disappeared, some people muttered. At this time, some people looked into the divine tomb and thought of what they had just said. The eternal divine kingdom was opened. Chapter 2021. 2021 God Lord came out, and dust flew everywhere. The eternal kingdom opened. This is not the God Lord's tomb. After the God Lord died, he was called the God Tomb. Why does it say that the eternal kingdom opened? Some people standing around the God Kingdom murmured, looking at the eternal kingdom with interest. The eternal kingdom seems to be able to enter. Some people looked at the stairs at the entrance with interest. Come, let's go in and take a look. A young man gritted his teeth and walked towards the stairs. In an instant, everyone looked at the young men. The young man at the front mustered up his courage and slowly walked up the stairs. When he reached the stairs, his heart was beating violently. When he saw that the destructive light energy was gone, his face revealed a look of joy. I'm fine. His face was filled with joy as he continued to walk up the stairs. Behind him, a group of youths immediately followed closely behind. We can go into the God Tomb. Quick, we can go to the tomb of the eternal God Lord. There are treasures everywhere. At this moment, everyone went crazy. They immediately rushed into the God Nation. Lowly creatures, the Lightwing God Lord opening the divine kingdom is a gift to all of you. You must move forward humbly. Just as everyone crossed the last step, a voice suddenly sounded in everyone's mind. Everyone was slightly stunned as they looked forward. In front of them, there was an incomparably huge divine statue. The divine statue was a divine tiger with wings. The divine tiger was incomparably majestic, giving everyone an unfathomable pressure. In front of this god statue, everyone couldn't help but bend down. Hiss, how can there be such a powerful pressure? Why does this divine tomb feel completely different from the Arctic divine tomb? Everyone was slightly shocked. They looked at each other and continued to walk inside. When they entered, their expressions started to change. Everything was too normal. There wasn't the slightest sense of dilapidation or killing intent. Some people had entered the North Pole divine tomb, and it was filled with sorrow. Some things were already dilapidated, giving people a sense of silence. And here, everything was full of vitality. It was as if it was not a graveyard, but a true divine kingdom. Right, did you notice that the divine tiger that just flew out is almost identical to the statue of God Lord Guangyi at the entrance? Suddenly, a girl said. Some of the people around were slightly shocked. As they recalled, their expressions started to change. You mean, the owner of this divine tomb isn't dead? One of them asked in surprise. No, he should have fallen, but is it possible that he has been resurrected? Is it possible that the God Lord has been resurrected? Everyone's hearts trembled slightly. They looked around the divine kingdom. How was this a divine tomb? It was clearly the divine kingdom of an eternal God Lord. Boom. Just as everyone who entered the divine kingdom was shocked, a ray of light suddenly enveloped the entire Jiang city. In the center of the light, a divine tiger that was thousands of meters in size stood in the center. At the same time, a majestic pressure instantly covered the entire land. Suddenly, a light covered the entire sky, causing everyone to be slightly shocked. What happened again? The people of Jiang City were slightly stunned. It had only been less than an hour since the incident with Suiyang. What had happened now? Light. Within Longmen Academy, Xiao Ran and the others sensed the sudden appearance of the light pressure. A bad premonition suddenly appeared in their hearts. Their bodies moved, and they immediately flew into the sky. Someone is coming from the South Pole Divine Tomb again? Chen Feiyang's slightly impatient voice sounded in the void. He stood beside Liu Mengshan and slightly looked towards the sky. When he saw the God Lord of Light Wings in the middle of the void, he was slightly stunned. Lord God Lord, it's him. It's him who nearly killed me. It's him, the successor of the North Pole Divine Tomb's God Lord. An incomparably furious voice sounded in the air. The voice was not loud, but everyone could hear it clearly. Sir God Master? Xiao Ran, Ji Lingfei, and the others looked at Suiyan's divine blood. Their gazes then landed on God Master Guangyi. God Master? Chen Feiyang was also slightly startled. His eyes sized up God Master Guangyi from head to toe. He slowly became serious. What's going on? Is that huge divine light tiger from the South Pole God Tomb? Are they here to take revenge for Suiyang? In Jiang City, all the people raised their heads, their expressions changing. Shan Yu's inheritor. At this moment, God Lord Lightwing, who was in the sky, locked his gaze on Chen Feiyang and asked indifferently, "That mountain guy?" When Chen Feiyang heard God Lord Lightwing's words, his pupils constricted. He dared to directly address God Lord Mountain by his name, and even attached that guy to it. Only existences of the same level would address him in this way. Otherwise, even for a fallen God Lord, very few people would address him in this way. It wasn't just Chen Feiyang. When everyone heard God Lord Lightwing's awe-inspiring and disdainful address, they were all slightly shocked. They stared at God Lord Lightwing, their expressions constantly changing. "Who are you? Please speak with more respect." Chen Feiyang's expression was somewhat awkward as he roared in a low voice. "Haha, even if he is still alive, I, Lightwing, dare to address him directly." God Lord Lightwing laughed lightly as he stared at Chen Feiyang. "An inheritor dares to kill my disciple. His crime is unforgivable," God Lord Lightwing indifferently said as he slightly raised his head. Roar. In an instant, a tiger head formed from light shot towards Chen Feiyang. What? At this moment, when Chen Feiyang heard God Lord Lightwing's words and felt this attack, his expression changed drastically. God Lord Lightwing, how is this possible? Didn't you already die? This is impossible. Mountains carry rivers. Chen Feiyang's pupils constricted as he shouted in disbelief. At the same time, his entire body trembled. A 10,000-meter thick mountain appeared in front of him, directly facing the tiger's head. There are many things you don't know. The mountain body that has just been formed is not able to withstand a single blow, God Lord Lightwing indifferently said to him. Boom. At this moment, the tiger's head collided with the mountain. The incomparably huge tiger's head emitted incomparably sharp teeth as it bit down on the mountain. Ka. At this moment, the mountain slowly split apart. Roar. The tiger's head roared angrily. Streams of light completely destroyed the mountain and directly attacked Chen Feiyang. What? Chen Feiyang's expression changed slightly. With a wave of his arm, his entire body rapidly expanded. With the mountain body activated, the 10,000-meter giant body appeared in front of everyone. Break for me. He let out a loud roar and attacked the streams of light. Chapter 2022. 2022 God Lord, Dust Flying, Fall 4. Boom. The entire sky began to shake, and countless streams of light shot out in all directions. Boom, boom, boom. An enormous explosion rang out. Xiao Ran, Ji Lingfei, Liu Mengxian, and the others' expressions changed slightly, and they hurriedly blocked the streams of light. Boom. Xiao Ran waved his arm, and an incomparably large flame shield blocked the sky. However, the flame shield was instantly pierced through, and a few rays of light shot towards him. Bang! When the rays of light landed in front of him, Xiao Ran's expression changed drastically, and he flew backwards. Oh no, what a terrifying attack! His face was filled with shock, and Ji Lingfei's expression was also incomparably grave. Arth! At this moment, the people below who had been swept by the flowing light let out miserable cries. Under that flowing light, even demigods were instantly reduced to ashes. In an instant, that flowing light alone had caused the deaths of at least 10,000 people in River City. Damn it! Chen Feiyang saw this scene, and an angry expression appeared on his face. He clenched his hand tightly, and a mountain peak appeared in front of him, slamming heavily in front of him. The mountain directly smashed towards the tiger's head. At the same time, he immediately flew into the sky to prevent the city below from being affected. Roar! Roar! The tiger's head roared and directly smashed towards the mountain. The incomparably terrifying power caused the mountain to collapse once again. Be careful. When Liu Mengxian saw this scene, her expression changed greatly, and she immediately warned loudly. All this while, Chen Feiyang had only relied on his mountain to suppress powerful enemies. This was the first time he had seen his mountain being shattered so easily. I am the Mountain God Lord's successor. Even if you are the Lightwing God Lord, you have already fallen. Even if you are resurrected now, it is impossible for you to have peak strength. I, Chen Feiyang, am not afraid of you. Chen Feiyang roared loudly as his body was covered by pieces of rocks. Soon, a mountain giant appeared in the void and transformed into a mountain. This was Chen Feiyang's strongest attack. After he finished speaking, he directly attacked the radiant Wing God Lord. The terrifying power and heavy aura were like an incomparably huge star that crashed towards him. Roar, roar. The God Lord of Light Wings continued to stare at Chen Feiyang indifferently as the massive tiger head charged towards him once more. Get lost. Chen Feiyang transformed into a mountain and charged towards the tiger head. A terrifying sonic boom sounded in the sky. Hong! The heavy attack caused everyone's hearts to tremble, as if their hearts had stopped beating. A few 100,000 meters below, some people below the demigod level spat out a mouthful of blood. In the sky, a wave of air that could be seen with the naked eye shot out in all directions. Everyone in Jiang City, as well as the cities around Jiang City, had a huge change in expression. They were all filled with fear. God Lord Guangyi, how is this possible? That divine tiger is actually the eternal God Lord. Hiss, the eternal God Lord has been resurrected. Oh my God, this. Below, everyone was sprawled on the ground, their faces filled with shock. Some of them were trembling as they shouted loudly. The resurrection of the eternal God Lord was like an invincible boss to everyone. Who would be able to block the resurrection of such an existence? Everyone raised their heads and looked at Chen Feiyang, who was fighting against God Lord Lightwing in the sky. The 10,000-meter-long tiger head was now completely biting Chen Feiyang's left hand. His mountain-like right hand kept smashing toward the tiger head. Roar! Crack! Ah! At this moment, a miserable scream came from Chen Feiyang's mouth. His mountain-like left arm began to slowly crack. It was crushed by the tiger's mouth. Chen Feiyang! Liu Mengxian's body trembled, and her eyes turned red as she roared. Explode! Chen Feiyang roared, and his entire left arm started to explode. A powerful force rushed towards the tiger's head. Roar! The tiger's head started to tremble, and the power of light flickered. Mountain body, Echempate. The God Lord of Light Wings frowned slightly when he saw this. He then snorted, and his wings trembled slightly. Whoosh! 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 At this moment, two enormous wings of light shot out from his body and slashed towards Chen Feiyang. The two wings of light were like lasers. In a flash, they landed on Chen Feiyang's body. Bang! 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 Chen Feiyang's body instantly began to crumble, and large chunks of stone began to scatter in all directions. Ah ah ah. A pained cry came from his mouth, and a hint of terror appeared on Chen Feiyang's face. Space locust, come out. He let out a terrified roar, and countless space locusts flew out from his body. At least 3 to 4 billion space locusts were densely packed towards God Lord Lightwing. Troublesome. God Lord Lightwing saw the space locusts appear, and the divine crown on his head emitted a ray of light as it swept towards the billions of space locusts. GGG. In an instant, the space locusts let out miserable cries. Countless space locust corpses fell towards the ground below. Over 100 million locusts fell, but the dozens of space locusts only lasted for a few dozen seconds. Following that, 2 incomparably sharp wings slashed towards Chen Feiyang's body once more. No. Seeing all the space locusts being destroyed and the extremely sharp wings landing on his body, Chen Feiyang's face revealed a terrified and desperate roar. Bang! 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 A few terrifying collisions sounded. Chen Feiyang slowly lowered his head and looked at his body in shock. His mountain body was gradually falling apart. He could feel that his life force was rapidly disappearing. No, I haven't returned to the boundless starfield. I'm the inheritor of the eternal God Lord, he shouted indignantly, his voice spreading throughout the entire world. Chen Feiyang. Liu Mengxin's eyes instantly turned red as she shouted in disbelief. A mere inheritor of the God Lord dares to challenge the dignity of my light wings? His courting death. At this moment, a cold voice filled with might sounded from above. Hong. With a loud sound, huge rocks fell down one after another. There was some blood mixed within the rocks. At this moment, everyone looked at this scene in a daze. Chen Feiyang was dead. Chen Feiyang was actually killed. Hiss. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, their faces filled with shock. Chen Feiyang's strength was something everyone had witnessed. Just a few billion starry locusts were enough to wipe out all the gods. But now, he was easily killed. No. When Liu Mengxin saw Chen Feiyang's corpse, her expression changed greatly, and she couldn't help but shout loudly, I am God Lord Guangyi. Now that the eternal kingdom has been opened, everyone should go and worship me. All the gods on this planet will enter my eternal kingdom and become disciples within 3 days. Otherwise, the gods will perish. At this moment, a majestic voice enveloped the entire earth and entered everyone's ears. Chapter 2023. 2023. All living beings become servants and all gods become disciples. I am God Lord Lightwing. The eternal divine kingdom is now open. Everyone, go and worship. All the gods on this planet, enter my eternal divine kingdom and become disciples within 3 days. Otherwise, the gods will perish. A vast and majestic voice resounded across the sky. The voice reverberated throughout the entire sky. Everyone listened to this sentence in a daze. Their faces were filled with shock. Especially those who were far away from Jiang City. When they heard this voice, their eyes were a little dazed, and their mouths were slightly agape. Lightwing God Lord. God Lord. Why did a God Lord suddenly appear on our earth? Hiss. The eternal divine kingdom has opened up. Is it the eternal divine kingdom from the South Pole divine tomb? Allowing the gods to join the eternal divine kingdom and become disciples, that Lightwing God Lord sure has an overbearing way of doing thing. The sky is going to change again. A shocking voice rang out, and everyone looked at the South Pole graveyard in a daze. Wang. At this moment, the wailing of heaven and earth rang out, and the shadow of a mountain giant suddenly appeared in the void. The shadow appeared for less than 10 seconds before it began to slowly collapse. The mountain god lord's successor, Chen Feiyang, had fallen. Hearing the mournful cries of heaven and earth and seeing the collapsing phantom, countless people were shocked. Chen Feiyang was the biggest lucky person before the recovery of spiritual energy, especially the position of Jiang City. Today, it was a huge disaster for Jiang City. The Lightwing God's main inheritor had fallen. Not long ago, Chen Feiyang, who had still displayed his divine might, had crushed Suiyang and the 5 light god tigers who had returned from the god's tomb. But now, he had been killed so easily. Everyone had witnessed Chen Feiyang's strength. He was definitely an invincible expert. But he had been killed so easily by God Lord Guangyi. How powerful could God Lord Guangyi be? In the sky above Jiang City, God Lord Guangyi indifferently swept his gaze over the corpses on the ground. His face was filled with contempt. He waved his arm, and all the corpses of the space locusts and Chen Feiyang were directly collected. The Lord God is invincible. Beside the God Lord, Suiyang, who was in the light void form, shouted with excitement. Next, it was the Dragon King's turn. Buzz. The God Lord glanced around and the light disappeared instantly. Next, he just had to wait for the gods to join the eternal divine kingdom. As for whether there were any gods who did not join, he was not worried at all. Those who did not join, he could just kill them. He believed that killing a God Lord's successor was enough to intimidate everyone. Roar roar. God Lord Lightwing, who had teleported to the sky above the eternal divine kingdom in the South Pole, let out a soft roar. He emitted a powerful divine might and flew directly into the divine kingdom. God Lord Lightwing is here. God Lord Lightwing is here. When he entered the divine kingdom, the faces of the people who had entered the divine kingdom changed slightly, and they hurriedly shouted. They had also heard the voice just now. Everyone respectfully knelt on the ground and bowed to God Lord Lightwing. Facing such a terrifying existence, they didn't dare not to kneel. God Lord Lightwing glanced indifferently and crouched above the peak of the divine kingdom. Who would have thought that the God Lord in this divine tomb would be resurrected? Everyone worships him, and the gods are his disciples. Will the Dragon King come here? Let's wait here. God Lord Guangyi is simply too terrifying. Chen Feiyang is the God Lord's successor, yet he was killed so easily. The people who entered the eternal divine kingdom saw God Lord Guangyi enter the center of the divine kingdom, and all of them were discussing in fear. Chen Feiyang. However, at this moment, in front of Jiang City's Dragon Gate Academy, Liu Mengxin's eyes were bloodshot as she looked at her surroundings. The corpse had already been taken away by God Lord Guangyi, so she could only look forward with sadness. This made her think of all the things Chen Feiyang had done to her during this period of time. The gifts he had given her, the teasing words he had said to her every day. Brother, Chen Feiyang, he's dead. Liu Mengxin could not help but come to Xiao Ran's side and burst into tears. Don't cry, don't cry. Let's go to Master's place. Don't cry. Xiao Ran also patted his sister's shoulder with some sadness. No matter what, Chen Feiyang gave everyone a pretty good impression, even if they had some grudges in the beginning. However, Chen Feiyang had made a move to deal with the danger that Earth had encountered, and when Suiyang came over to take revenge, Chen Feiyang had helped him. Suiyan's usual attitude, although he liked to act pretentious, was not annoying. He spoke softly, and his eyes were filled with fear as he looked in the direction of the South Pole. Who would want an eternal god there, a resurrected eternal god? Moreover, the eternal God had asked all the gods on earth to join his eternal divine kingdom and become his disciples. How overbearing was it to become his disciple? Even when the Dragon King had asked the gods to join the Dragon Palace as external members, he was not this overbearing. Perhaps, this was the majesty and confidence of the eternal Lord. Let's go to the Dragon Palace. Xiao Ran patted Liu Mengxin's shoulder and the group immediately flew towards the Dragon Palace. The current situation was not something he could solve. Buzz. Master. Teacher. When Xiao Ran and the rest arrived in the sky above the Dragon Palace, they saw Wang Xian and the leaders of the Dragon Palace floating in the sky. Yes. Wang Xian nodded and looked towards the South Pole with a slight frown. Master, Chen Feiyang is. He is dead. Xiao Ran walked over and said in a low voice. I already know that the god of light wings is very powerful. Wang Xian nodded his head. He had sensed it when Chen Feiyang died. Chen Feiyang's death surprised him greatly. Chen Feiyang's strength had already ignited 7 wisps of divine fire and possessed a special physique. Before Wang Xian's level increased, he could not guarantee that he would be a match for him. Master, that god of light wings used less than a minute to kill Chen Feiyang. His strength might not have recovered to the level of the eternal God Lord, but he should be close to the peak in the god realm. He wants all the gods to worship him. He wants all the gods to become his disciple. He wants all the living beings to be his servants and all the gods to be his disciples. He is the master. Xiao Ran continued to speak to Wang Xian with an embarrassed expression. That eternal God is too strong. I'm not his match. Ao, he said with a solemn expression. Xiao Lan can now kill a god with 8 wisps of divine fire. Judging from the power of the god of light wings, he should be above the 8 wisps of divine fire. Lan Qingyu frowned at the side. Xiao Xian, should we enter the Transcendence continent to hide? Guan Shuqing and the other girls looked worried. With the current strength of the Dragon Palace, it would be difficult for them to fight against the God Lord of Lightwing. Ao he, if you devour the tomb in the North Pole, do you have the confidence to kill the God Lord of Lightwing? At this moment, Prime Minister Gui suddenly asked Ao he, devour the damaged eternal divine kingdom? Ao Crab's eyes were shining. If I devour that divine kingdom, I have the confidence to defeat or even kill him. Prime Minister Gui nodded slightly and looked at Wang Xian. Bhe, go and pick a soul-returning embryo fruit. Xiao Ran, bring Bhe to the place where Chen Feiyang died. Revive him. We will enter the divine kingdom at the North Pole and let Ao Crab devour the divine tomb. Wang Xian ordered the 8-limbed Xiao Ran and the rest indifferently. If it was a true eternal god, the Dragon Palace would naturally not be their match. However, a god who had fallen and resurrected had yet to recover to his peak. He wanted to see what qualifications he had to make them his disciples. All living beings as servants and gods as disciples. He. Chapter 2024. 2024 gathered. Uncle Bhe, can the Dragon Palace really save Chen Feiyang? Really? At this moment, in the void, Xiao Ran, Ji Lingfei, and Liu Mengxian flew toward the place where Chen Feiyang had fallen with Bhe. When Liu Mengxian heard the news that Chen Feiyang could be saved, she was excited. Cake, there's nothing our Dragon Palace can't do. The last time Xiao Ran died, he was directly saved. Bhe smiled arrogantly and said indifferently, last time, my brother's corpse was still okay. But this time, Chen Feiyang's. His body was taken away by the God Lord of Light Wings. Liu Mengxian's eyes flickered as she said this. Don't worry. You'll know soon enough. As Bhe spoke, the group sped up and flew towards River City. When they arrived at River City, everyone turned their gazes towards Bhe. Bhe took out the soul-returning cauldron and crushed it. A special sensation entered his heart. With a slight jolt, the crushed soul-returning cauldron condensed once more, forming the image of Chen Feiyang. However, it looked like it was only the size of a palm. It closed its eyes and did not move. Chen Feiyang's death this time was different from Xiao Ran's. At the very least, Xiao Ran still had a corpse. He did not even have a corpse. The soul-returning embryo condensed into a body. Bhe smiled. Let's go back to the Dragon Palace. Under the shocked gazes of Liu Mengxian, Xiao Ran, and the rest, everyone immediately flew toward the Dragon Palace. Dragon King. After entering the Dragon Palace, Bhe handed the soul-returning embryo fruit to Wang Xian. He still needs some energy to revive. Okay. Wang Xian nodded. After hesitating for a moment, he looked at Lan Qingyu. Qingyu, he has the energy of Kuan in his body. Let Xiao Lan release some energy to revive him, he said to Lan Qingyu. Originally, Chen Feiyang already had some of Little Blue's systems in his body. These systems could not strengthen him in any way. Instead, they could control his life and death. This time, if he used Kuan's energy to completely revive him, it would also be an opportunity for him. In the long run, this opportunity would be even more terrifying than the Mountain Godlord's opportunity. This could also be considered a compensation for swallowing his divine kingdom. All right. Lan Qingyu nodded. With a wave of her arm, a special grey energy entered Chen Feiyang's body. Soon, Chen Feiyang's body slowly grew bigger, and he finally returned to his original appearance. However, the energy in his body was only at the demigod level. At this moment, Chen Feiyang's body moved, and Liu Mengxian, who was beside him, revealed a look of surprise and joy. He's alive. He's really alive. she said with a pleasantly surprised expression. Oh, I'm dead, right? This. Chen Feiyang slowly opened his eyes and looked around. Then, he suddenly touched his own body. What's wrong with me? Why am I so weak? What happened? He said anxiously. You're already dead. Your body was taken away by the God Lord of Lightwing. Our Dragon King resurrected you. Keek. Octokai smiled at him and said. I'm dead. I remember. Mengxian, I really died and was resurrected. He still looked at Liu Mengxian in disbelief and asked. Yes, it was Teacher who brought you back to life. Because your body was taken away by the God Lord of Lightwing, he created a new body for you. Liu Mengxian started to explain to him. This caused Chen Feiyang's expression to change continuously. Not long ago, he had the strength of 7 wisps of divine fire. Now, he was only at the demigod level. This blow was very, very big to him. Let's go. Bring us into the god tomb of the god of mountain. We need that god tomb of yours. At this moment, Wang Xian said directly to Chen Feiyang. Chen Feiyang, after the god of light wings killed you, he opened up the eternal god. He wanted all the living beings to worship him. He also wanted all the gods to enter his divine kingdom as his disciples. Teacher and the rest want to use the divine kingdom of the mountain god to increase their strength. Liu Mengxian immediately explained to him. He wants to use my eternal divine kingdom. Chen Feiyang was slightly stunned. His expression changed and he looked like he was in pain. All right, it's already a new life for you to be revived by us. Furthermore, your body and physical energy are gathered by me. You can die completely with just a thought. Lan Qingyu said to him indifferently. The corner of Chen Feiyang's mouth twitched. He nodded his head and accepted his fate. All right. No matter what, thank you for saving my life, Dragon King. He stood up and bowed slightly to Wang Xian. He knew that being able to resurrect from the dead was already the greatest opportunity for him. Let's go. Wang Xian gestured to Ao Crab and the rest. They immediately flew into the North Pole Divine Tomb. Even though the Divine Tomb was damaged, it still contained a terrifying pressure. If one wanted to enter the North Pole Divine Tomb with brute force, one had to have the strength of a peak godly state. This was also the reason why Wang Xian and the rest did not enter the 2 tombs at the North and South Poles. Buzz. As the inheritor of the tomb, Chen Feiyang could freely enter the tomb. Under his lead, the group entered the tomb. I was originally planning to wait until I reached the level of the Eternal God Lord before making it my eternal divine kingdom. Now. Chen Feiyang looked around the tomb with a helpless expression. Ao Crab. Wang Xian gestured to Ao Crab who was beside him. All right, Dragon King, the divine kingdom of the eternal divine lord, even if it's a slightly broken divine kingdom. Ao Crab's face revealed a fiery expression. Roar. He growled in a low voice and his entire body underwent an earth-shattering transformation. He was a gigantic and ferocious devouring dragon with a pitch-black body. There were sharp claws and spikes made of bone. It had a pair of enormous wings made of bone, and its entire body was exuding an evil aura. Its entire body was more than 10,000 meters in size. Hualala. At this moment, small devouring dragons of the same shape crawled out of his body. The densely packed small devouring dragons revealed each of them to be 3 to 4 meters in size, and their faces were ferocious and terrifying. While Chen Feiyang was dumbstruck, Ao Crab directly swallowed some of the buildings in the divine tomb. Crack, crack, crack. A mountain peak that was thousands of meters in size was directly swallowed by Ao Crab. Following that, Ao Crab's huge and savage body began to devour the surrounding mountains. As a mountain peak in the divine kingdom of an eternal god, every one of them could be called a divine peak. After Ao Crab devoured it, it immediately turned into majestic energy. As long as the devouring dragon had enough resources, it could evolve to the peak. Mengxian, my heart is bleeding. Chen Feiyang looked at the eternal divine kingdom that originally belonged to him being devoured and said to Liu Mengxian with heartache. All right. It's good that you're alive. Although the divine kingdom was lost, the inheritance is still there. You can still recover in the future, Liu Mengxian said to him with a smile. Chapter 2025. 2025. In 2025, all the living beings gathered. Ao Crab's devouring speed was very fast. His 10,000-meter-long body was wreaking havoc in the divine tomb, and the mountain peaks were decreasing at a terrifying speed. At the same time, the aura on his body was even more terrifying. It's completely over. The eternal divine kingdom. Back then, the mountain god lord used nearly 10,000 years to build an eternal divine kingdom. Chen Feiyang looked at her unwillingly. He wanted to cry but no tears came out. I'm going to ignite the divine fire. I'll protect you from now on. Liu Mengxin smiled when she saw him like this. You said it yourself. I'll rely on you from now on. Chen Feiyang immediately stared at her and said, Huh? Why do I feel like you're up to no good? Liu Mengxin saw the change in his expression and raised her eyebrows as she stared at him warily. How can that be? Mengxin, my eternal divine kingdom is gone. He quickly pulled a long face and looked pitiful. At this moment, he also knew that he had to cling tightly to Liu Mengxin. The Dragon King's influence had completely exceeded his expectations, especially the monster that had devoured his divine kingdom. It was simply terrifying. Even when he was at his peak, he was absolutely not a match for this monster. In the future, we'll cultivate together. I believe that one day, we'll definitely become the eternal God Lord. Liu Mengxin smiled at him and comforted him. Then in the future, we'll walk the path of cultivation side by side. Chen Feiyang's eyes flickered as he said, Kid, don't have any bad ideas. I wasn't your match in the past, but now, Chen-ph, you have to be more honest. Xiao Ran, who was at the side, glanced at him when he saw this fellow's expression. Ah! Chen Feiyang smiled embarrassedly and didn't say anything. He had also clearly understood the current situation. The eternal divine kingdom was gone, and his strength had fallen to the level of a demigod. This was definitely an incomparably terrifying loss to him. But he had just discovered that his constitution seemed to have undergone some changes. He was very clear about his original mountain physique, but now, he discovered that his mountain physique had undergone some changes. It had become stronger and more terrifying than before. He was certain that back then, when he was in his current realm, he was definitely not as strong as he was now. In fact, the current him could even defeat more than a dozen of him in his previous realm. It should be some of the physique of the space beast that is the Dragon King's wife. Now, my mountain body has become several times stronger than before. With the inheritance that I have obtained, as long as I have enough resources, I will definitely be able to completely recover and even reach the eternal God Lord realm. Chen Feiyang's mind was active as he thought about what to do next. Go, go, go. God Lord Guangyi wants all of us to go and worship him. Let's hurry over. All below the gods are ants. This time, even if the gods don't go to the eternal divine kingdom, they'll fall. God Lord Guangyi is too overbearing. He actually wants all of us to worship him and make the gods his disciples. But, who dares not go? Just as Ao Xie was devouring the divine tomb, everyone in the world flew towards the eternal divine kingdom in the North Pole with solemn expressions. With the words of the God Lord of Light Wing, the eternal divine kingdom had been opened and everyone was going to worship it. Who would dare not go? This time, everyone discovered that the God Lord of Light Wing was much more domineering than the other gods. Back then, even when the gods descended, they did not kill any mortals. And when the God Lord of Light Wing killed Chen Feiyang, the God Lord's successor, tens of thousands of people were killed. It could be seen that the eternal God Lord treated them like ants. Moreover, he even dared to declare that if the gods didn't join the eternal divine kingdom and become disciples, they would be sentenced to death, let alone mortals. After witnessing the terrifying strength of the God Lord Guangyi, everyone had to go to the eternal divine kingdom to worship him. The eternal God Lord was already a mysterious and unknown terrifying existence to them. Billions of people rushed toward the eternal divine kingdom in the South Pole. They had to reach the eternal divine kingdom in 3 days. After 1 day, more and more people gathered around the eternal divine kingdom. The recovery of the spiritual energy had greatly improved the physique of many people. It was not difficult to rush here. In just 1 day, 2 to 3 billion people had gathered around the eternal divine kingdom. Everyone gathered around the eternal divine kingdom and looked at the divine kingdom with reverence in their eyes. So far, it seems that no gods have arrived, right? Some people who had just arrived floated in the sky and looked around, asking in surprise, "Gods? Aren't the gods the Dragon King and the Dragon Palace?" Xiao Ran from the Dragon Gate Academy is the Dragon King's disciple, so they are naturally together. Then do you think the Dragon King is a match for the God Lord of Light Wings? How can he be a match for the God Lord of Light Wings? Chen Feiyang can only be so terrifying. He even has billions of space locusts, but wasn't he easily killed? Everyone discussed. Now that all the living beings had rushed over, the gods were next. The gods on Earth respected the Dragon King. The Dragon King's attitude might represent the attitude of the other gods. They were all discussing whether the Dragon King would come over and submit. Did the Dragon King have the strength to fight against the God Lord of Lightwing? You may not know about the eternal God Lord. In the boundless starfield, an eternal God Lord can suppress an entire starfield and control at least dozens of planets. With one strike, he can destroy planets. Even if the God Lord of Lightwing hasn't recovered to his peak, ordinary gods cannot fight against him. Chen Feiyang is a good example. Humph, the Dragon King and the others can destroy the gods, but there's a world of difference between the God realm and the eternal God Lord realm. I dare say that the Dragon King and the others will definitely come. The Dragon King's Dragon Palace's strength is about the same as Chen Feiyang's. If he still wants to live, he will definitely come. The disciples of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace's sacred hall who had come with the gods said one by one. They came from the boundless starfield, so they naturally knew the majesty of the eternal God Lord. Moreover, they didn't have a good impression of the Dragon King or the Dragon Palace. If the Dragon King hadn't destroyed the Lingxiao Treasured Palace or the Sacred Hall, they wouldn't have become ordinary people now because of their powerful background. Some people in the surroundings were slightly silent when they heard their words. The eternal God Lord, an eternal God Lord who could easily destroy the inheritor of the God Lord, Chen Feiyang. This time, the Dragon King and the others were probably. Some of them looked behind them and then in the direction of the eternal divine kingdom, waiting silently. At this moment, on the highest mountain in the center of the eternal divine kingdom, the God Lord of Light Wings slowly opened his eyes and stood up with his huge body. An endless pressure came from his body, and the bright feathers around him swirled. I'm almost at the peak of the godly state. Chapter 2026. 2026 Dragon King, here it comes. Congratulations, Lord God Lord, your strength has increased once again. Congratulations, Lord God Lord, your strength has recovered. Within the eternal divine kingdom, Suiyen's illusionary light body kneeled in front of him and bowed respectfully. We are still quite a distance away from recovering to the God Lord realm. However, once we recover to the peak of the God realm, we will be able to open up that mountain guy's divine kingdom. The God Lord raised his head slightly and looked towards the direction outside the divine kingdom. Lord God Lord, everyone on this planet has already rushed over here. I reckon that the entire world will soon gather in front of the divine kingdom and prostrate before you. Suiyang said respectfully to the God Lord. Oh, why hasn't a single god arrived? The God Lord stared outside with a cold glint in his eyes as he asked indifferently. My lord, all the gods now respect the Dragon King. Perhaps only when the Dragon King arrives will the other gods come. I just don't know if that damned Dragon King will disobey my lord. Suiyang immediately said. Dragon King? Hihi, if they don't come, then I'll use their flesh and blood and resources to recover my strength. The God Lord of Light Wings was full of powerful majesty. He didn't care about the Dragon Palace or the Dragon King at all. It's you, Lord God Lord. Even if we kill them, after we arrive at the Boundless Star area, it's enough to have more than 10 gods from the Fire God Palace to serve you. Suiyen's eyes sparkled as he said. The God Lord of Light Wings glanced at Suiyang indifferently. He knew what he was thinking. However, he held his tiger head high and didn't argue with Suiyang. Right now, everything was focused on recovering his own strength. As long as he recovered to the peak, how could he worry about having no gods to rely on? This time, if a god didn't come, he would treat it as his own food. The spiritual energy on this planet has recovered, and the gods have revived. Many people have obtained quite a lot of opportunities. Go outside and summon some servants to manage my divine kingdom, the god Lord of Light Wings said calmly to Sui Yang. Yes, Lord God Lord. I will do it right away. Sui Yang immediately bowed and nodded. The reason why the god Lord of Light Wings had opened up his divine kingdom and made all the living beings worship him was that he wanted to recruit some servants. All the subordinates who had once followed him in battle had died. Now, the entire divine kingdom was empty, without any living creatures. He needed at least tens of thousands of divine servants to take care of the entire divine kingdom. At the same time, he also needed to make some preparations for his future development. Earth had experienced the recovery of spiritual energy. One by one, the ancient lands of the divine kingdom appeared. This kind of opportunity was incomparably huge in the boundless star field. Under various reasons, countless elites and geniuses would naturally be born. Sui Yang rode on a divine light tiger, and around him were more than 10 divine light tigers. He sat proudly on it and immediately flew out. There's a figure coming out of the eternal divine kingdom. Is it the divine Lord of Light Wings? There's movement in the divine kingdom. Quick, kneel down. At this moment, at the entrance of the eternal divine kingdom, when someone saw a figure coming out of the divine kingdom, they cried out in alarm. Some people even knelt on the ground, their faces filled with reverence. It's Sui Yang, the strongest person in the Fire God Palace. When Sui Yang rode out of the divine kingdom of light, everyone immediately recognized him. 2 to 3 billion people immediately looked at him, their eyes filled with confusion. Lord God Guangyi is preparing to recruit 10,000 divine servants into the eternal divine kingdom. Light-attributed people and talented people can join. Upon entering the eternal divine kingdom, you will become the servant of the eternal divine Lord. You will live in the eternal divine kingdom for eternity and enjoy the baptism of the divine kingdom. This will be a great opportunity for you. Those who feel that they are qualified, step onto the steps of light and enter the eternal divine kingdom. Sui Yang rode on top of the divine light tiger. His gaze swept across everyone in front of him as he announced proudly, "Recruiting servants." When everyone heard his words, they were slightly shocked, especially those on earth. Becoming a servant was very difficult for them to accept. Becoming a servant of the eternal God Lord and staying in the eternal divine kingdom forever, is this true? Being able to stay in the eternal divine kingdom forever, this is simply a huge opportunity. This is the eternal God Lord's divine kingdom. Different from some people on earth, the disciples who followed them all revealed excited and passionate expressions. Entering the eternal divine kingdom and living in the divine kingdom forever was simply a huge blessing. This meant that behind him was a divine Lord. In the future, who would dare to provoke him in the boundless starfield? I'm willing to join. I'm willing to join. For a moment, one figure after another flew up the stairs of light. Greetings, Sir Sui Yang. Sir, would you like to see if I have the qualifications to join? One person after another flew over and knelt in front of Sui Yang. Very quickly, there were several 100,000 people in front of the stairs of light. Among them were former disciples of the Sacred Hall and also former disciples of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. There were even some disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy. If the God Lord of Lightwing suppresses everyone in the future, he will join the eternal divine kingdom and become a divine servant. He will be high and mighty. Not only that, an eternal God Lord has a lifespan of 1,000,000 years. No one will dare to provoke him if he becomes the eternal God Lord's divine servant. At this moment, more people realized this problem. However, it's another story if the Lightwing Godlord can suppress the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace. Will the Dragon King and the others be a match for the Lightwing Godlord? If they aren't a match for him, why didn't the Dragon King and the others rush over to become his divine disciples despite knowing how powerful the Lightwing Godlord is? Seeing more and more people flying over, the commotion around became even greater. Soon, many people began to discuss the Dragon King and the Lightwing Godlord's strength. If the Dragon King of the Dragon Palace and the others don't kneel here, tomorrow will be the day they die. Hearing the discussions in front of them, Sui Yang said confidently. Hearing his words, everyone felt a slight chill in their hearts. More and more people knelt in front of the stairs of light, and Sui Yang picked 10,000 of them. The chosen people followed Sui Yang excitedly, walking toward the eternal divine kingdom. Tomorrow, the divine Lord of Lightwing will probably come out. I wonder if the Dragon King and the others will come over. I wonder if a war will break out. Some people thought to themselves as they stood there and waited quietly. At this moment, in the North Pole's divine tomb, a huge and ferocious body was wreaking havoc in the entire divine kingdom. The divine kingdom, which covered an area of more than 10,000 kilometers, was now in an extremely sorry state. Only 1/10 of the buildings and the mountain peaks remained. I should be able to finish devouring it by tomorrow. I wonder how strong Ao Crab will be. Wang Xian stood at the top of a mountain peak and looked at it with a twinkle in his eyes. He turned around slowly and looked in the direction of the South Pole. Chapter 2027. 2027 Dragon King, here it comes. Ao Crab, Dragon of Devouring. Level, 9 wisps of divine fire. A day passed very quickly. When the entire interior of the divine tomb was completely devoured, Wang Xian looked towards the center. Ao Crab, whose entire body was emitting khaki and black energy, revealed a smile when he looked at its attribute. 9 wisps of divine fire. This is already sufficient, he mumbled. Under the circumstances where the Ao Crab with 9 wisps of divine fire was fighting against someone of a higher level, it was sufficient to be invincible under the Eternal Lord. In fact, he might even be able to fight against the Eternal Lord. Master, it's already the 3rd day. Shall we go over? Xiao Ran walked over and looked at Wang Xian as he asked. Of course we have to go over. Since the God of Light Wings wants all the gods to go over, let's go and have a look. Wang Xian nodded his head lightly and looked at Lan Qingyu. Bring Xiao Lan along. Let's go meet the God of Light Wings. All right. Lan Qingyu nodded her head. Wang Xian moved his body and flew out of the divine tomb, floating in the sky. Buzz. Name, Wang Xian. Race, Yin-Yang 5 Elements Divine Dragon, Mandragon Unity. Level, 2 wisps of divine fire, 5th transformation of the Divine Dragon transformation. Divine Crystal, 54222110000000000000. Ability, rules the water race below its own level. Devours living things to extract divine crystals. Control of the 5 elements. Cultivation method, Divine Dragon transformation. Ability, soul absorbing, spirit attaching, Yin-Yang 5 elements dragon eyes. Aspect, 5 elements millstone, dragon kingdom in the palm, dragon head under the sky, dragon body of 10,000 miles, Yin-Yang poles, Yin-Yang 5 elements arms bowl, divine dragon tail swing. Divine kingdom, Dragon Palace. Dragon Palace, level 6. Dragon Palace member, 26,633. He had a thought and an attribute appeared in his mind. Looking at his own strength, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. When Lan Qingyu and the rest obtained a bunch of resources from Chen Feiyang, he lit up the 2nd wisp of divine fire. With 2 wisps of divine fire, he could fight against the god of 8 wisps of divine fire with his full strength. Prime Minister Gui, Ao Xie, and a group of girls stood beside Wang Xian. Buzz. At this moment, a black hole the size of 100 kilometers appeared out of thin air behind them. In the black hole, Xiao Lan's gigantic body slowly emerged. Let's go to the eternal kingdom of the South Pole. Lan Qingyu touched Xiao Lan and said to him. Woo woo. Xiao Lan shook her body slightly and opened her huge mouth. Buzz buzz buzz. Roar roar roar. Just as Wang Xian and the rest were about to head to the eternal kingdom of the South Pole, the entire eternal kingdom suddenly trembled. A roar filled with endless majesty rang out. Is the God of Light Wings coming out? The Dragon King and the rest are still not here. Are they preparing to fight against the God of Light Wings? 3 days had already passed. At this time, the number of people gathered in front of the eternal divine kingdom had already reached a few billion. Everyone in the world had gathered here. When they saw the divine kingdom tremble and the roar, everyone's hearts trembled slightly. The radiant wing god Lord had come out, but not a single god had arrived. Hua hua hua. At this time, on both sides of the entrance of the divine kingdom, divine servants wearing radiant armor quickly ran out and lined up neatly in 2 rows. Their faces were filled with fervor and piety, and even a trace of madness. At this moment, all of them were 2 levels higher than yesterday. This was a promotion given to them by their Lord God. They couldn't help but rejoice that their choice was so correct. The 5,000 people on both sides slightly raised their heads, revealing a trace of arrogance on their faces. From today onwards, they were the Eternal God Lord's divine servants. After today, the Eternal God Lord would suppress everything, and they would also be above all the living beings in front of them. Everyone was slightly stunned when they saw the divine servants who had joined the Eternal Divine Kingdom yesterday. They felt the great change in their power, and shock appeared on their faces. Is this the benefit of joining the Eternal Divine Kingdom? Everyone will increase by 2 levels in 1 day. Hiss, is this the power of a God Lord? Everyone was extremely shocked, and some of them looked regretful. Hua la. Suddenly, the sound of flapping wings could be heard, and the divine servants on both sides immediately knelt on the ground. Lord God Lord Lightwing has arrived, all living beings worship him. A voice sounded from within the divine kingdom, and soon after, a huge figure filled with pressure slowly appeared. Light wings fluttered around him, and a divine crown of light appeared on his head. At this moment, God Lord Lightwing's entire body was filled with an imposing aura, and his mighty divine might enveloped a radius of tens of thousands of kilometers. God Lord Lightwing. Everyone's hearts trembled as they felt this suppressive might that was like a prison. Everyone hurriedly knelt on the ground. Wang. God Lord Lightwing landed on the top of the stairs of light, looking down at the billions of people in front of him. His eyes were filled with indifference. In his eyes, these mortals were just ants. None of the gods have arrived. God Lord Guangyi swept his gaze across everyone, his eyes flashing with a hint of coldness. Not a single god had arrived. This was a provocation to him. God Lord Guangyi's first words slightly surprised everyone. The area within a radius of more than 10,000 kilometers was deathly silent, and no one responded. The Dragon King's group had yet to arrive, causing many people to be extremely astonished. Could it be that the Dragon King really had the strength to contend with the Divine Lord of Lightwing? Reporting to the Divine Lord, not a single one of the gods with the Dragon King as their leader has arrived. They dare to disobey the Divine Lord and shall be punished with death. Sui Yang followed behind and respectfully reported loudly. Disobeying the Divine Lord shall be punished with death. The tens of thousands of divine servants on both sides also shouted with cold faces. No one can challenge my dignity. A trace of killing intent appeared in the eyes of the God Lord of Lightwing. Everyone instantly felt a chill in their hearts, as if a pair of invisible hands were pressing down on their neck. Next, is the God Lord of Lightwing going to kill the Dragon King and the others? Countless people thought in their minds. Buzz. Since the God of Lightwings has invited us, the Dragon Palace will naturally come over. I, the Dragon King, will naturally come over. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded in the void. Everyone was slightly shocked. They quickly raised their heads and looked up into the sky. This is. Right opposite the God of Light Wings, in the sky above billions of people, a gigantic black hole appeared out of thin air. Inside the black hole, Wang Xian, Guan Shuqing, and the other girls, as well as the leaders of the Dragon Palace, strolled out. The Dragon King is here. Is he going to become the disciple of the God of Light Wings? Hiss, the Dragon King is here after all. It seems that the Dragon King is really afraid of the God of Light Wings. Everyone's expression changed slightly when they saw the figures of the Dragon King and the rest. Some of them could not help but mutter. Since you're here, why don't you scram to the front and kneel before us? When Sui Yang saw Wang Xian and the rest, he roared with a ferocious expression. The God of Wings of Light also stared at Wang Xian and the rest with a cold gaze. His eyes were filled with indifference. Woo woo. However, when Sui Yan's voice had just faded, a deep voice sounded. In the black hole, a gigantic object slowly appeared in everyone's sight. Its 300-kilometer-long body instantly covered the sky of countless people. When the surrounding people saw the Dragon King's figure standing on the huge beast, they were slightly shocked. Was he here to submit? Chapter 2028. 2028 God of War number 2028. Buzz, buzz, buzz. In the sky in front of the eternal kingdom of South Pole, the god of light wings was facing Wang Xian and the rest from afar. The surrounding air was somewhat frozen. Everyone could feel a terrifying aura brewing in the middle. Wang Xian and the rest were standing on top of Xiaolan's head. They were staring at the god of light wings with smiles on their faces. As for Suiyang, they did not even take a glance at him. Woo woo. Xiaolan stared at the god of light wings with her huge eyes and let out a soft roar. A savage aura emanated from her body without the slightest hint of fear. Hiss, that space behemoth is that space behemoth. This is the space behemoth that covered Earth with the space locusts. Oh my god, this space behemoth is actually a member of the Dragon Palace. This space beast. The Dragon King and the others have this terrifying space beast. They are completely qualified to fight against the God Lord of Light Wing. Space beast, why is the Dragon King leading this space beast? This is to fight against the God Lord of Light Wing. Shocked voices came from below. Everyone's faces were filled with shock. Last time, when the space locusts covered the entire Earth, a space behemoth appeared out of nowhere and averted the disaster on Earth. Everyone thought that they were lucky. Now it seemed that this space behemoth was completely a member of the Dragon Palace, a subordinate of the Dragon King. How terrifying was this space behemoth? One thing everyone could be sure of was that it was definitely not weaker than Chen Feiyang, or even stronger. The Dragon King had brought him here with such an attitude, and it was clear that he wanted to fight against the God Lord. Suiyang looked at the space beast that came out of the black hole, and his eyes widened in shock. When the divine servants who had joined the eternal divine kingdom saw this scene, they looked slightly embarrassed. Space beast, I didn't expect there to be another space beast on this planet. Lightwing Master was also slightly stunned when he saw Little Blue. In the universe, the most powerful single creature was the space beast. Space beasts roamed the space, feeding on all kinds of energy or other space beasts. Each space beast had the power of a god level, and there were very few space beasts less than 5 or 6 wisps of divine fire. Slightly stronger space beasts were comparable to the eternal God Lord's strength. As for those that were stronger, there were some. In the history of the starry skies, space beasts were also known as disaster beasts. As for space locusts, they couldn't become space beasts. They were only space beast. Ha ha ha, but if I absorb the energy of this space beast, I'll definitely be able to obtain a huge recovery. However, all of a sudden, under everyone's astonished gaze, the god of light wings suddenly roared with laughter. Hearing his excited laughter, everyone was slightly stunned. Facing such a terrifying space beast, not only is the god of light wings not worried at all, he is actually very happy. What a strong confidence he has. Everyone's eyes sparkled as they watched. As expected of the former eternal god. He is indeed arrogant. Wang Xian looked at his arrogant manner that did not put anyone in his eyes and said faintly, Used to be. When the god of wings heard Wang Xian's words, the smile on his face stopped abruptly. He stared at Wang Xian with an awe-inspiring and cold gaze. I will make all the gods my disciples. Kneel or die. I will give you 5 seconds to choose. The god of light wings was still staring at Wang Xian and the rest with dignity. TSK, what an arrogant beast. 8-limbed Mo Sha sneered when he saw how arrogant this fellow was and how he ignored everything. Roar roar, since you have chosen to die, I will fulfill your wish. When the god of light wings heard 8-limbed Mo Sha's words, killing intent instantly filled his entire body. Do you really think that you can fight against me with the help of the space beasts? It's just a giant beast that is comparable to 8 wisps of divine fire. He raised his head and a pair of huge wings of light unfolded. Roar. With a tiger roar, a tiger head with a radius of more than 100 kilometers attacked Wang Xian and the rest directly. The head of the tiger of light soared into the sky as if it wanted to devour the entire sky. At this moment, the billions of people below revealed a look of fear. This is bad. If we were to fight, even if it was just a small ripple, we wouldn't be able to withstand it. This is bad. In a battle of this level, if some energy were to sweep over, tens of millions of people could be turned into ashes. When everyone saw the radiant wing god attacking, their faces revealed a look of fear. Behind them, countless people hurriedly fled into the distance. TSK, he clearly hasn't recovered to the Godlord realm yet, and he actually dares to call himself a Godlord. Chimpate. Ao Crab saw the radiant tiger head that was attacking them, and a trace of coldness appeared on his face. His body trembled, and a dragon head of a devouring dragon instantly condensed in the sky. The dragon head was incomparably savage, and it was also 100 kilometers in size. It was filled with an evil aura. Dragon head versus tiger head. Ao Crab versus God Lord Lightwing. Roar. 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 The dragon roared and the tiger roared. The two enormous dragon heads of the devouring dragon clashed against God Lord Lightwing's tiger head, tearing at it madly. In an instant, waves of terrifying light energy and dark earth elemental energy shot out in all directions. The battle erupted. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Little Blue's body shook, and streaks of earth and yellow energy appeared below, enveloping everyone below. Boom, boom, boom. Countless amounts of energy landed on the energy barrier and were completely blocked. It was the Dragon King and the others who blocked the shockwaves of the battle. The Dragon King is still on Earth. Regardless of whether Earth enters the boundless star field or encounters danger in the chaotic region, it was the Dragon King and the others who took care of it. I hope the Dragon King can defeat the God Lord of Lightwing. Look, the one who took action is the Dragon King's subordinate. He blocked the God Lord of Lightwing's attack. When everyone below saw this scene, they heaved a heavy sigh of relief. They looked up into the sky and saw the enormous dragon head and tiger head colliding. The tiger head was actually torn open with huge wounds. Oh! God Lord Lightwing's pupils constricted slightly when he saw the scene in the sky. His gaze was fixed on Ao Crab. You are actually able to withstand my attack. It seems that you really do have some strength. However, the stronger you are, the better. This means that after I kill you, I will be able to recover even faster. God Lord Lightwing's entire body revealed a sinister expression. Waves of light energy trembled on his body. A terrifying radiance covered half the sky. The Dragon King and the others are very powerful. However, you have completely angered God Lord Lightwing. You are finished. You are finished. When Suiyang saw that the Dragon King and the others were actually able to block God Lord Lightwing's attack, his expression changed slightly. However, very quickly, he growled with a malevolent expression. Chapter 2029. 2029 Under the God of War. Kill the Dragon King and the others. The Lord God is invincible. How can a Dragon King be a match for the Lord God? Wait for your death. On both sides of the Stairs of Light, 10,000 divine servants were slightly shocked when they saw the powerful attacks of the Dragon King and the others. However, soon after, they roared ferociously. They had joined the Eternal Life Divine Kingdom and become the divine servants of the God Lord of Lightwing. Naturally, they hoped that the God Lord of Lightwing could kill the Dragon King and the others. They hoped that the God Lord of Lightwing could suppress the entire planet and lead them into the boundless star field to suppress an area. The God Lord of Lightwing is invincible. He killed the small fry of the Dragon Palace. Suiyang roared loudly. The God Lord of Lightwing is invincible. He killed the small fry of the Dragon Palace. The rest of the divine servants followed suit and roared. Roar. Roar. God Lord Lightwing's body was emitting a powerful and terrifying pressure. His huge body slightly bent, and in an instant, he pounced toward Aosia toward Little Blue. His enormous wings, divine crown, and terrifying pressure. This leap of his was filled with invincible power. Little Blue, pull him into the Kuan region. Lan Qingyu immediately ordered Little Blue. By pulling him into the Kuan region, they would be able to gain the upper hand and prevent the battle from affecting the people below. If they were to really fight, just the aftershocks of the battle would be enough to kill everyone below. Wang. Woo woo woo. Little Blue looked at God Lord Lightwing who was charging over. His body trembled slightly, and a terrifying black hole appeared in front of him. A powerful suction force was transmitted over. This is. God Lord Lightwing's body shone brightly, wanting to resist the suction force of the Kuan region. He struggled with all his might, and his incomparably powerful strength caused his body to remain motionless. Come in. Ao Chitian, Ao Xingmu, Ao Qi, and the others looked at each other and roared wildly. One chain after another, one thorn after another, a total of 11 berserk dragon species and 4 starwood dragon species pulled toward God Lord Lightwing. Even though their strength was only comparable to the 4 wisps of divine fire, it was still a considerable disturbance to the God of Light Wings. The divine kingdom's domain? Even if I enter, what can you do to me? The God of Light Wings moved his body and entered the Kuan region. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In an instant, Wang Xian and the rest entered the Kuan region as well. Everything in the sky vanished instantly. This situation is exactly the same as when Chen Feiyang wanted to suppress him for an entire lifetime. He disappeared. Where did the space beast take them? Why did he suddenly disappear? Do you guys think that the Dragon King and the rest are a match for the God of Light Wings? I still support the Dragon King to defeat the God of Light Wings. I don't know. But since they were able to bring him into the void, the Dragon King and the rest are definitely not weak. Voices of discussion came from below. Some timid people took advantage of this opportunity and quickly hid far away. The entire eternal divine kingdom was in chaos. The Lord God is invincible. Sui Yang and the divine servants only stared at the void, their faces slightly malevolent. Everyone scattered around and waited quietly. Roar. At the same time, in the Kuan region, the God of Lightwings scanned the entire space with a cold expression. Is this the divine kingdom territory of the space behemoth? The God of Lightwing's face was filled with a dense aura as he stared coldly at Wang Xian and the rest. A fallen God Lord is not recovering properly. Now, he wants us to become your divine disciples. Then, this time, I will let you die completely. Wang Xian stared at the God of Light Wings with a cold look in his eyes. A God Master who had yet to recover to his peak wanted to enslave them? Roar. My light wings have been conquering the void for hundreds of thousands of years. Today, I will add your blood to my eternal divine map. The God of Light Wings spread his enormous wings and flapped them slightly. A divine map of light slowly appeared on his back. On the divine diagram, there was the image of a godly tiger. Below the godly tiger, countless creatures were kneeling and worshipping. In the middle, there was a gigantic blood pool. The blood pool was emitting a strong bloody smell. The entire divine diagram was gigantic and had a radius of more than 100 kilometers. Boom! The God of Light leaped into the air and attacked Wang Xian and the rest directly. The divine map of light revolved around the surroundings, emitting a strong power of light. TSK TSK, let me experience your strength. Roar roar. Ao Crab leaped forward from Xiaolan's body. His body immediately transformed into a ferocious devouring dragon. His entire body was filled with sharp thorns and bones. His ferocious tail swept towards the God of Light Wings. You're courting death. God Lord Lightwing also wagged his tail. The divine map of light spun, and streams of energy poured into the tiger's tail. Boom! A terrifying collision was heard, and God Lord Lightwing's face was filled with confidence and arrogance. His strength had recovered to 9 wisps of divine fire, and with the help of the divine map of Light Wing, his natal artifact, he felt that he was invincible under the Eternal Master. Facing the ferocious Ao Crab in front of him, he was not worried at all. However, when he collided with the Ao Crab, his expression suddenly changed. The collision between the dragon tail and the tiger tail did not send the opponent flying, even with the support of the divine map. Instead, an intense pain came from the tiger tail. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, the incomparably ferocious devouring dragon head directly bit towards him. Roar, roar. God Lord Lightwing also roared loudly. The divine light diagram draped over his body, and the God Lord on the divine light diagram bit towards Ao Crab. Crack, crack, crack. When the divine tiger on the divine light diagram bit Ao Crab, a series of cracking sounds rang out. The God Lord's expression changed slightly. How is this possible? Your strength. At this moment, his expression changed slightly. He flapped his wings slightly and two enormous wings of light slashed towards Ao Crab. Boom. Boom. Ao Crab also flapped his enormous wings of bone to meet the wings of light. A violent collision sounded and the wings of light disappeared instantly. Roar. Roar. Ao Crab raised his sharp dragon claws and clawed towards the body of the God Lord of Light Wings. Light Wing Divine Map, cover my body. The Light Wing Divine Master roared and covered his body with the divine map. The creatures on the map raised their hands, and a terrifying shield of light condensed in front of them. Peng! The dragon claw landed on the divine map, but there was no fluctuation at all. Damn it, you are a beast, how can you have such terrifying strength? The Light Wing Divine Master's face was extremely ugly at this time. The arrogance and confidence that he had in his hands had completely disappeared. He opened his huge mouth and a terrifying flare of light shot towards Ao Crab. Roar. Roar. Today, I, Ao Crab, will definitely kill you. When Ao Crab heard his words, his entire body shot out a terrifying killing intent. Similarly, he opened his savage dragon mouth and shot out an attack covered in black spot. Boom. The sound of an explosion rang out again. Chapter 2030. 2030. The 2030 Dragon Palace was invincible in this world and could sweep through all enemies. The short-term attack was completely evenly matched. Ao Crab was very strong and could almost fight 2 levels above him. However, the God of Light Wings could not be treated with common sense. The most terrifying thing was the divine map of Light Wings on the God of Light Wings. It was once an eternal God-level divine artifact. Even though its power had decreased, it could still be considered invincible below the eternal God level. Xiaolan, let's fight. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he watched the battle between Ao He and the God of Wings. With Ao his strength, he might not be able to kill the God of Wings in a short period of time. Xiao Xian, be careful. The group of girls immediately said. With the current strength of the Dragon Palace, the only ones who could participate in the battle were Wang Xian, Xiaolan, and Ao He. The rest of Ao Chitian and the others were only comparable to the gods with 4 wisps of divine fire. Roar. Wang Xian let out a furious roar. His entire body immediately turned into a few thousand meters in size. His 7-colored body was flickering with light. Buzz. His body trembled. Behind him, the Dragon Palace slowly appeared behind him. The 5 elements grinding mill was suspended high above his head while the yin-yang tai chi was suspended below him. Dragon Palace, boost. 5 elements, extinguish the long river. Wang Xian let out a furious roar. Streams of extinguishing long river headed straight for the God of Light Wings. Buzz. At this moment, the entire Kuan region suddenly trembled. An invisible grey energy was suppressing the God of Light Wings. Damn it, there are actually 2 gods who are comparable to 8 wisps of divine fire. The strength of you bunch of damn fellows is really beyond my expectations. However, you still have to die. Light Wing Divine Map, strengthen my body. The God Lord of Light Wing roared, and the 100-kilometer divine map slowly entered his body. His body expanded again, directly becoming 50 kilometers in size. Even Ao Crab looked much weaker in front of him. Buzz. Buzz. But at this time, Ao Crab's body also trembled. Dragon Palace buff. A level 6 Dragon Palace could increase the offensive power of a member of the Dragon Palace by 10 times. This 10 times could give Ao Crab almost 100% of the strength to fight against the Eternal God Lord. Roar. Ao Crab roared and his body also transformed into dozens of kilometers in size as he attacked the God Lord. The river of destruction swept over, and the suppression of the Kuan region descended. What? God Lord Lightwing's expression changed once more when he saw Ao Crab's strength increase once more. He stared at the river of annihilation in front of him, then waved his enormous wings. Whoosh! Light swept past, and the river of annihilation dissipated. He then leaped forward and bit at Ao Crab. Boom! At this moment, a grey energy pressed down on his body, causing his momentum to slow down slightly. Roar! Roar! At this moment, Ao Crab's sharp dragon claws landed heavily on the head of the God of Lightwing. Roar. An intense pain was emitted from the god of Lightwing's mouth. Numerous wounds appeared on his head. 5 elements trap, chains. Wang Xian stood in the distance, swaying his huge body as he shouted again. The 5 elements chains headed towards the god of Lightwing. Buzz. At the same time, the entire Kuan region trembled gently once again. A powerful force landed on the body of the god of Light Wings once again. The pressure of the Kuan region was as though the god of Light Wings was constantly supporting Xiaolan's body in battle. With Xiaolan's body size of 300 kilometers, one could imagine how terrifying the pressure was. Even though his strength was almost invincible below the eternal God Lord, this force still placed a huge restriction on him. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Chains covered the sky as they wrapped around God Lord Lightwing. With his white body and bloody wounds on his head, God Lord Lightwing looked somewhat savage. You bunch of damnable fellows, I'm the eternal God Lord, and you actually injured me. God Lord Lightwing, who was high up in the sky, was injured as he roared in a somewhat berserk manner. This is only the beginning. Ao Crab's enormous body flew over. His savage dragon head, terrifying dragon claws, and sharp bone spikes pounced over. Whoosh! God Lord Lightwing shook hard, and the 5 elemental chains around him instantly collapsed. He stared at Ao Crab with his blood-red eyes. Roar! With a wild roar, the countless light wings around him transformed into divine light tigers. Each divine tiger was 10 meters in size, and they pounced densely on Ao Crab. Ka. Ao Crab's gaze swept across the densely packed light bodies, and his body was also awe-inspiring. Within his dragon scales, many small devouring dragons crawled out, their blood-red eyes staring at the divine light tigers. Roar, roar, roar. 20,000 to 30,000 small devouring dragons directly bit towards the divine light tigers. Ao Crab continued to charge forward, his dragon tail sweeping out. The terrifying dragon tail even caused the entire Kuan region to tremble. Light praise, tiger tail blessing. The God Lord of Light Wings' expression changed slightly, and his tiger tail raised high. Wung wung wung. The sounds of praise rang out around him, and countless phantoms floated around him. Waves of powerful light energy poured into the tiger tail. The second collision. Hong. The tiger's tail, which was blessed by billions of creatures, collided with Ao Crab once again. Crack, crack. A cracking sound was heard. The moment the tiger's tail collided with Ao Crab, it bent slowly. The dragon's tail continued to entangle him. The praises of billions of creatures around him dissipated instantly. What? At this moment, the expression of the god of wings of light finally changed drastically. A look of panic appeared on his face. Yin-Yang 5 elemental spear. At this moment, Wang Xian, who was floating by the side, emitted a bright and miserable glow. The 5 elemental grinding above his head emitted a 5-colored divine light. The yin-yang poles beneath his body emitted a black and white aurora. A spear condensed and was over 10 kilometers long. It directly attacked the god of light wings. Boom! In just an instant, the god of light wings, whose tail was injured by the tiger, was instantly struck by the yin-yang 5 elemental spear. This attack was Wang Xian's strongest attack at the moment. It contained 7 attributes, and its penetrative and offensive power had reached its peak. The yin-yang 5 elements spear penetrated into the winged god's abdomen and only penetrated about 1 to 2 kilometers. My strength is still 1 or 2 levels lower than him. Wang Xian shook his head slightly when he saw that his full-strength attack had only caused such damage. Of course, he did not intend to seriously injure his opponent. With his strength, it was impossible for him to do so. You ant, you deserve to die. The god of light wings was in pain. He pounced at Wang Xian with a ferocious expression. Buzz. At this moment, the Kuan region trembled again. The grey energy landed on his body, causing his body to tremble again. You are the one who deserves to die. If you want to attack our Dragon King, you have to go through me, Ao Crab. Ao Crab swayed his body and his dragon tail wrapped around him. 2 huge dragon claws clawed at him crazily. In an instant, blood gushed out. Chapter 2031. 2031. The 2031 Dragon Palace was unrivaled in this world, and it swept through all enemies. Ao ao! Agonized screams rang out within the Kuan region. God Lord Lightwing swayed his enormous body, and a terrifying light shot out in all directions. The divine crown above his head rose, striking towards Ao Crab. Boom! The terrifying strike caused Ao Crab to loosen his dragon tail and dodge to the side. Roar! He opened his mouth, and a terrifying black earth-colored energy tide charged towards God Lord Lightwing. Roar! Roar! God Lord Lightwing was sent flying backwards by the energy tide. Blood began to seep out of his mouth. At this moment, his eyes revealed a hint of terror. At this moment, he sensed the threat of death. Damn it, damn it. He shook his body in panic. He knew that he had been careless. He should not have entered this domain. He had never imagined that there would be creatures on this planet that could contend with him and even injure him. If he continued to fight, he might be heavily injured or even die. Leave this domain, or I might die. God Lord Lightwing thought to himself with an extremely ugly expression. He glanced warily at Ao Crab, then turned around and fled to the back. Want to escape? Aren't you the invincible eternal God Lord? Didn't you want us to become your disciples? Why are you fleeing now? Ao Crab said mockingly when he saw that God Lord Lightwing was actually trying to escape. His body moved, shaking his enormous body as he directly charged towards the attack. As long as I leave this place, without the suppression of this space behemoth divine kingdom, I might not necessarily be a match for that monster. God Lord Lightwing's eyes flickered with light as he fled towards the void behind him. Peng! However, when he flew 500 kilometers, he suddenly seemed to hit an invisible barrier. The expression of the God of Wings of Light changed instantly. Die! Behind him, Ao Crab's terrifying dragon tail swept out once again. The God of Wings of Light, who was already hit, could not dodge in time. Boom! The dragon tail landed on the body of the God of Wings of Light, causing him to fall directly into the void. At this moment, Wang Xian's 5 Elements Annihilation River was attacking him. Buzz! The Obliteration River landed on his body, causing his body to tremble. More blood flowed out from his wound. Even if the 5 Elements Obliteration River could not injure him, it could still make him feel extremely uncomfortable. There was Ao Crab who could not be defeated even if he fought him alone. There were 2 races at the peak of the universe, the 7-colored divine dragon and the Kuan. Under such circumstances, he felt extremely aggrieved. Entering Little Blue's Kuan region, he couldn't even teleport. No, I have to get out. God Lord Lightwing felt the intense pain on his body. His tiger body shook, and the divine map of light that covered his body slowly rose. Wung wung wung. All the creatures in the divine map seemed to have revived. They walked out from the divine map and stood behind it. The billions of creatures on the divine map sat cross-legged on the ground, murmuring and worshipping piously. Under the blessing of the billions of creatures, a light barrier rose up. Boom! At the same time, God Lord Lightwing's tiger palm directly attacked the area in front of him. The entire Kuan region trembled slightly, and cracks appeared in front of him. Woo woo woo! Xiao Lan sensed the collapse of the Kuan region. With a roar, the cracks began to slowly heal. God Lord Lightwing, don't even think about escaping. TSK, I've never killed a God Lord before. You can be the first. Ao Crab looked over and shook his body as he charged towards the divine map. Boom! The terrifying collision caused the billions of living beings below the divine map to instantly dissipate. Roar! His dragon head directly bit towards the divine diagram. Below, half of the living beings of the divine diagram died. Damn it, this planet has only just recovered its spiritual energy. How can there be such a terrifying existence? God Lord Guangyi couldn't help but roar wildly. He shot out vast amounts of light energy from his mouth and attacked the Kuan region once more. Ka. Cracks appeared once more. Crash. However, behind him, the sound of the light shield formed by the divine diagram collapsing could be heard. Oh no! His expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly dodged to the side. Peng! However, Ao Crab's dragon claw had already arrived, and it landed directly on God Lord Lightwing's chest. Pu! The terrifying sharp dragon claw directly entered God Lord Lightwing's body. God Lord Lightwing was once again heavily injured. No, no. Light heal. Light life force. God Lord Lightwing roared, and the injuries on his body quickly healed. At the same time, the tiger palm attacked Ao Crab. Roar. Ao Crab opened his mouth wide and bit the tiger palm into his mouth. His sharp teeth, which were strong enough to bite through an eternal divine kingdom, were immediately broken. Roar. 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 A painful sound was heard. The face of the god of wings of light began to twist. Roar. A stream of bright energy spewed out from his ferocious face as he charged toward Ao Crab. Ao Crab's two gigantic bone wings blocked the front and completely blocked his attack. Don't let him escape. At this moment, Wang Xian saw the god of wings of light desperately trying to escape. He immediately spoke to Ao Crab. Roar. Roar. Ao Crab's gigantic dragon head went straight for the god of light wings. At this moment, the god of light wings completely ignored the attacks from the back. At this moment, if he did not escape, he would be done for. He continued to bite. His eyes were blood red as he charged forward once again. Crack, crack, crack. The sound of the Kuan region shattering was heard. His eyes revealed a look of hope. Ao Ao. However, at this moment, a pain that was almost tearing his body apart came over. Half of his body was bitten directly. He felt as if his body was about to break. Bang! In front of him, the Kuan region was completely torn apart. Slowly, the world that was like a black hole began to collapse. Can you escape? Wang Xian smiled when he saw the god of light wings being bitten. He moved and transformed into a human form before landing on Xiaolan's body. The world below gradually appeared in front of everyone. At this moment, countless people were scattered around. When they saw the scene in the sky, it was as though space had been shattered. Everyone widened their eyes and looked up at the sky in shock. A gigantic head appeared out of thin air above them. It's the God Lord. It's our God Lord. Ha ha ha. The God Lord has killed all of them. The God Lord has come out. Could it be that our God Lord has won? When Sui Yang and the 10,000 divine servants saw the gigantic head appear out of thin air, their faces were filled with excitement. They roared loudly. When the others saw the head appear out of thin air and heard Sui Yan's excited roars, their faces were filled with shock. Could it be? Chapter 2032. 2032. The 2032 Dragon Palace was invincible in this world and could sweep through all enemies. Could it be that the Dragon King and the others were really killed by the God Lord of Light Wings? Everyone looked at the huge head that appeared out of thin air, and their faces were filled with shock. The God Lord of Light Wings was about to come out, which meant that nothing had happened to him. Then, roar, roar. Just as everyone was guessing in their hearts, Sui Yang and the tens of thousands of divine servants were filled with excitement and excitement. The God Lord with his head poking out let out a miserable shriek that shook the world. Everyone was shocked and widened their eyes. Crack, crack, crack. The sky above them collapsed like glass. The Kuan region had completely disappeared, and a shocking scene appeared. At this moment, the God Lord's body was bitten by an incomparably large and ferocious creature. A large amount of blood covered his snow-white body. One of his tiger palms had completely disappeared, and a rich bloody smell filled the entire starry sky. Behind God Lord Lightwing, the Dragon King and the others stood in front of the space behemoth. Keek, why are you running? God Lord Lightwing, didn't you want us to become your disciples? Why are you running? Eight-limbed Demon Shaw and the others' mocking voices rang out. Roar, roar, roar. God Lord Lightwing shook his enormous body violently, trying to break free from Ao Crab's bite. However, as a devouring dragon, Ao Crab's most powerful part was his teeth and his dragon head. How could he break free so easily? He let out a furious roar. Everyone below was completely stunned when they heard the voices of the eight-limbed Mosha and the others. They were especially shocked when they saw the Lightwing God Lord being bitten by the Dragon King's subordinates. This wasn't the Lightwing God Lord killing the Dragon King and the others. It was the Lightwing God Lord trying to escape. This is impossible. This is absolutely impossible. Lord Lightwing is a god lord. This is a god lord that can suppress an entire lifetime in the endless starfield. Even if Lord God Lord hasn't recovered to his peak, he is definitely not someone an ordinary god can contend against. At this moment, Sui Yang was somewhat absent-minded. As a god that had descended here, as an expert of the endless starfield, he naturally knew how powerful God Lord Lightwing was. Even if he hadn't recovered to his peak, with his current strength, he was still the strongest existence in the endless starfield apart from the 5 god lords. As long as he had some resources, God Lord Lightwing would become the 6th space expert in the endless starfield. But now, he was defeated by the people of the Dragon Palace. How could this be? Gulp. On both sides of the stairs of light, the tens of thousands of divine servants looked at the scene in the sky in a daze. Cold sweat appeared on their heads. They opened their mouths and felt that the sky was dark. Roar, roar, roar. At this moment, an incomparably shrill scream came from the sky. Under everyone's shocked gazes, the god of wings struggled with all his might. His body was torn apart. There was only one head and 2 legs. Half of his body broke free and quickly fled towards the eternal divine kingdom below. Roar. Ao Crab let out a low roar. His head bit onto the half of the god of Lightwing's body and swept towards Wang Xian and the rest. Do you think you can hide just by entering the eternal kingdom? His body moved and he quickly chased after the front half of the god of Lightwing's body. He dived towards the eternal kingdom below. Buzz. In the sky, the blood of the god of Lightwing spilled onto the ground like rain. His body, which was over 100 kilometers long, rapidly shrank. When he entered the eternal divine kingdom, the entire eternal divine kingdom instantly flashed with the power of light. Arth. The light flashed, and a repulsive force repelled Sui Yang and the other divine servants. God Lord Lightwing sealed the entire eternal divine kingdom. The divine servants who were repelled let out a miserable shriek, their faces blank. Do you think you can stop me with your divine kingdom? Ao Crab's eyes were cold as he roared at God Lord Guangwing. His huge dragon claws clawed at the sky above the eternal divine kingdom. Boom! A terrifying force landed on the divine kingdom, causing a huge crack to appear on the light barrier. In the eternal divine kingdom, God Lord Guangwing watched this scene in shock. His face was filled with fear. How is this possible? How can there be such a terrifying existence in such a small planet? I, Guangyi, have waited for hundreds of thousands of years to be resurrected. It was not easy for me to wait for this opportunity to be resurrected. I am not willing to accept this. He looked at the crack in the eternal kingdom. When he saw Ao Crab charging in, his face was filled with despair. Let's go, we'll go too. Wang Xian's figure moved as he spoke to Guan Shuqing, Lan Qingyu, and the rest. Immediately, he flew into the eternal kingdom. Roar, roar, give me a chance. Give me a chance. I can give this eternal kingdom to you guys. Don't kill me. Wang Xian had just entered when he heard the god of Lightwing's roar with a face full of fear. TSK TSK, if I kill you, this eternal kingdom will naturally belong to us, Ao Crab said coldly, and his enormous body attacked once more. No, no, I am willing to become your divine servant. Don't kill me. God Lord Lightwing couldn't help but beg for mercy when he saw Ao Crab charging over. Me. You still call yourself me in front of us? You better die. Ao Crab's enormous dragon head directly bit towards God Lord Lightwing's tiger head. He was already severely injured. Without half of his strength, there was no way he could block Ao Crab's attack. Ao Crab bit on the head of the god of wings of light. Boom! At the same time, a destructive darkness and earth attribute covered his head. Roar! 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 A muffled voice filled with despair rang out. The life force of the god of wings of light had completely dissipated. Wang Xian and the rest looked at this scene indifferently. A faint smile appeared on their faces. Put away the body of the god of wings of light. This is a huge amount of resources. Wang Xian ordered the members of the Dragon Palace. It's the Dragon King. The members of the Dragon Palace nodded excitedly. Move all the treasures of the Eternal Kingdom into the Dragon Palace. Killing the god of light wings was another significant amount of resources. These resources should be able to increase the number of godly state experts in the Dragon Palace. Apart from that, the body of the god of light wings should be enough for Ao Chitian and the rest to upgrade to at least 5 to 6 wisps of divine fire. At that time, the high-end combat strength of the Dragon Palace would also increase a little. Wang Xian and the rest were full of smiles. Chen Feiyang, who was standing at the side, watched this scene silently. An eternal god who could easily kill him was now easily killed by the Dragon King and the rest. He could not help but feel fortunate that he did not go to the Dragon Palace to provoke the Dragon King last time. Otherwise, he would have been killed. Chapter 2033. 2033, the boundless gods were waiting. The god of light wings is dead. With that scream, the god of light wings is dead. Hiss, it seems like he's really dead. The Dragon King and the others killed the god of light wings. The Dragon King and the Dragon Palace are simply too powerful. The god of light wings could easily kill Chen Feiyang, but he still ended up dying in the hands of the Dragon King and the others. This god Lord Guangyi was so arrogant that he made us all come and worship him. He made all the gods his disciples, but in the end, he was killed by the Dragon King's Dragon Palace. Is he no longer arrogant? When everyone heard the god Lord Guangyi's miserable screams coming from the eternal divine kingdom, they all had gloating expressions on their faces. The god Lord Guangyi made all the living beings come and worship him. They didn't dare to disobey him, so everyone came. But he had arrogantly made the Dragon King and the others his disciples, and now, he must have been killed. No one had a good impression of the Divine Lord. Seeing them as ants, they naturally wanted to see the Divine Lord die. Lord Suiyang, what should we do? On the steps of light, when the tens of thousands of divine servants heard the screams of the eternal God Lord's death, they were completely dumbfounded. Now that their master was dead, what could they do? What could they do? Moreover, would the Dragon King kill all of them next? What should we do? What should we do? At this moment, Suiyang was a little broken. He murmured and looked a little absent-minded. From being destroyed by the Dragon King in the Fire God Palace, to obtaining opportunities in the Eternal Divine Kingdom, to leading a group of divine tigers of light to take revenge, his body was damaged. Now that the Eternal Lord was killed, he had completely collapsed. What was he going to use to seek revenge against the Dragon King? Buzz. At this moment, the Eternal Kingdom opened up once again. A strong force of light was emitted from it. Under the cover of the light, Wang Xian led a group of members of the Dragon Palace out. Wang Xian looked at Suiyang in front of him indifferently. His eyes revealed a hint of coldness. Get rid of them, Wang Xian said to his subordinates from the Dragon Palace. Buzz. As soon as he finished his sentence, Bhe and Mo Sho waved their arms. Waves of demonic aura engulfed Suiyang and the divine servants. Dragon King, don't be arrogant. One day, you will be killed too. This day will come very soon. Very soon. Suiyang felt the threat of death and roared with a ferocious face. When the demonic aura covered him, his body of light slowly dissipated. The last drop of divine blood was completely dead. The 10,000 divine servants didn't even let out a scream when the demonic aura swept past them. The Eternal Kingdom is now open. In 1.5 years, the Dragon Palace will take back this Eternal Kingdom. Wang Xian's gaze swept across the billions of people in front of him. His voice entered their minds. Let's go. After he finished speaking, he spoke to Guan Shuqing and the rest around him. Everyone landed on Xiaolan's body and left immediately. All the disciples and students of the Dragon Gate Academy, come here. I will bring all of you to the center of the Eternal Divine Kingdom to cultivate. This is the Divine Kingdom of the Eternal God Lord. Although it was damaged after the fall of the God Lord, the spiritual energy contained in it is still extremely terrifying, especially for light attribute cultivators. A day of training here is equivalent to 100 days in the outside world. If you are lucky, you might have a chance to ignite the divine fire. Xiao Ran and Ji Lingfei did not leave. The two of them spoke to all the disciples and students of Dragon Gate Academy. The opening of the Eternal Divine Kingdom was a huge opportunity for everyone. Naturally, Xiao Ran and the others first allowed the disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy to enter. After training here for a year, the overall strength of the Dragon Gate Academy would definitely rise by a level. Enter the eternal divine kingdom to train. Everyone's faces revealed an excited expression when they heard this news, especially the disciples and students of the Dragon Gate Academy. The Dragon King is still treating us well. As a local of our Earth, the Dragon King really has nothing to say about how he treats us. That's right. If it weren't for the Dragon King, we wouldn't know what would have happened. We would support the Dragon King. After the Dragon Palace destroyed the Eternal God Lord, no one on Earth would be able to compete with him. Up until now, all the gods who had descended and awakened, except for those who had joined the Dragon Gate Academy, have all been destroyed by the Dragon King. The Dragon Palace is truly invincible in this world, sweeping away all enemies. Everyone was discussing happily. The death of the Radiant Wing God Lord this time meant that the Dragon Palace was truly invincible in this world, sweeping away all enemies. Next, no one would dare to offend the Dragon King and the Dragon Palace. After a world-shaking war ended, everyone had a premonition that it would be peaceful next. Even the resurrected God Lord had been destroyed by the Dragon King. Who else would dare to challenge the dignity of the Dragon Palace? In the next few days, everything returned to normal. Wang Xian and the Dragon Palace had destroyed God Lord Guangyi this time, elevating their dignity to the peak. Countless television stations were broadcasting the glory of the Dragon King. Countless people were praising the deeds of the Dragon King. There were even people who compiled the deeds of the Dragon King into a book and spread it widely. Basically, everyone had a book on the deeds of the Dragon King. When Wang Xian saw the contents of the book from Guan Shuqing and the rest, he was a little embarrassed. He had never thought that he was so powerful. Just when the Earth was peaceful and even more prosperous, in the distant star field. The entire star field was emitting a faint white light. 5 huge suns and stars stood in the entire star field, illuminating an area of several thousand light-years. In this star field, the spiritual energy was abundant. 700 to 800 life planets were located in this star field. The entire star field was magnificent and magical. In the star field, there was a starry sea, a void forest, and a meteorite belt. All kinds of magical things formed a huge star area, the boundless star area. Our fire god palace's last expert, God Suiyang, died a few days ago. Damn it. I wonder what happened in the recovery place. At this moment, in the boundless star area and a void space where even sunlight couldn't reach, an old man on a fiery red sharp sword said with a cold face. Around him, there were many huge beasts, splendid covers, and vast figures. They were floating in the void, looking in the direction of the void. From the figures and the eye-catching flags, it could be seen that they were the 5 forces: the skyscraping treasured palace, the fire god palace, the pyramid, the holy church, and the boundless sea of stars. Although the 5 forces weren't the strongest forces in the boundless star field, they could still be considered to be ranked in the top ranks below the 5 great god lords. More than 10 years ago, the 5 great forces had used their divine artifacts to sense the spiritual energy fluctuations in the distant starry sky and sent the gods there. But now, one bad news after another kept coming. Chapter 2034. 2034. The gods of the boundless universe were waiting. The gods of the pyramid have no news of us. Even the divine seat has been split open. The gods of the boundless universe can't be contacted either. They should have fallen as well. Your pyramid was completely destroyed by the resurrected gods and evil spirits. As for the boundless universe, only one god has successfully descended. It's normal for him to have fallen, but your fire god palace's throne has been destroyed by some dragon king. That's not a dragon king, but the leader of a powerful force. Our last news was that our holy church and the Lingxiao treasured palace had almost been destroyed when they joined forces. The gods who survived took out all their resources to raise a resurrected god, an existence with 6 wisps of divine fire. After preparing for revenge, there was no more news. He should have died in the hands of the Dragon King. Numerous figures floated in the air, their bodies exuding an extremely terrifying aura. Everyone's expressions weren't very good, their solemn auras causing the surrounding void to freeze. The voice resounded in the ears of every single figure. Zhon Lingtian, what news does your Lingxiao treasured palace have? The divine beast of light pulled a huge canopy carriage, and an old man who was covered in the power of light stood on it. He held the scepter of light in his hand and asked a burly middle-aged man indifferently. The burly middle-aged man held a war hammer in his hand. His body was emitting a terrifying fighting spirit. He looked at the wrinkled old man beside him. There is still a member of our Lingxiao treasured palace who is still alive. However, she has betrayed us. The wrinkled old man said indifferently with a cold and gloomy face. Betrayed? The surrounding gods raised their eyebrows and revealed a mocking expression. However, I can still contact her. When I do, I can see her current location through the astral divine disk. The old man said indifferently. When he saw the expressions of the surrounding gods, a cold expression flashed through his eyes. Then I'll trouble Elder Li to lock onto that planet's location, a god standing on the pyramid said to the old man. All right. The elder nodded and immediately took out a mirror. Buzz. The mirror trembled. At this moment, Ji Lingfei, who was far away on Earth, had a slight change in expression. She awkwardly took out a mystical mirror from her interspatial ring. Beside her were Xiao Ran, Liu Mengxin, Chen Feiyang, and Sun Lingxiu. The group was cultivating in the eternal divine kingdom at the South Pole. What's the matter, Lingfei? Xiao Ran looked at the mirror and asked her with concern. It's a message from my master, my master. Ji Lingfei looked a little embarrassed. It's okay, open it. Sun Lingxiu said to her. Okay. Ji Lingfei nodded, waved her arm, and the mirror opened. Disciple, tell me about the situation on that planet. When the mirror opened, the old man's face appeared. With a dignified expression, he ordered Ji Lingfei. Master, you've nurtured me into a god. Over the years, I've brought you enough benefits and resources. In the future, treat me as if I don't exist. When Ji Lingfei saw the old man, her body trembled. Gritting her teeth, she said directly. She was filled with gratitude towards her master, who had nurtured her into a god. However, all these years, everything she had done was already enough to repay him. However, when faced with her master treating her as a chess piece, her heart was incomparably cold. She might as well end it. Vile disciple, I can give you all of this, and I can also take all of it away from you. Compete. When the old man heard his words, an unconcealed killing intent appeared on his face as he coldly shouted at her. After he had said that, he hung up the mirror and the image disappeared. Hearing her master's words, Ji Lingfei bit her lips, her eyes slightly red. Lingfei, it's okay. I'm here. Xiao Ran walked over and gently put his arm around her shoulder, comforting her in a low voice. Hall Master. In the endless star area, the old man looked at the burly middle-aged man and bowed slightly. The gods of all the forces around them all looked in their direction, their eyes shining. They had to get everything on that planet. Especially when they found out that there was a divine tomb there, it made them a little crazy. The divine tomb was the divine kingdom of the eternal God Lord. If they could get the inheritance inside, they would have a chance to become the eternal God Lord. They would truly stand at the peak of this star field. For this, they were even prepared to personally descend to that planet. A piece of good news. The burly middle-aged man revealed a faint smile. That planet is moving towards our direction. From the route, it should be preparing to enter our boundless star field. Oh! The surrounding gods were slightly stunned, their eyes flashing with a luster. We don't know why that planet recovered, but since the spiritual essence has recovered, if they want to continue to improve and if they have ambitions, they have to enter our boundless star field. A middle-aged man riding on a 10-meter-large divine beast said indifferently, his eyes flashing with excitement. So, we just have to wait here? An elder from the boundless universe narrowed his eyes and looked at the leaders around him. There are more than a dozen damaged god kingdoms on that planet. There are 2 god tombs. How are we going to divide them? An elder on the pyramid asked calmly. No one can open those 2 god tombs now. When the time comes, we'll rely on our own abilities. The burly middle-aged hall master of the Lingxiao treasured palace said indifferently. What about the other god kingdoms? If they are not easy to distribute, They can be used as cultivation areas for our disciples, the elder of the sacred hall said as he swept his gaze over the other factions. The surrounding gods slowly nodded, their eyes shining. From their point of view, the most important thing was the god tomb. After entering the god's tomb, whether they would fight or kill, that would be another matter. However, we absolutely cannot let other factions know about this planet, especially those 5 factions. At this moment, the temple master of the Lingxiao treasured palace said with a grave expression. We naturally know about this. Otherwise, with our strength, your Lingxiao treasured palace and the sacred hall wouldn't have given us such a huge benefit. The gods on the pyramid said with a faint smile. Among the 5 major factions, the pyramid faction was the weakest. The reason why the 5 major factions were able to share the benefits fairly was because they were afraid that someone among them would tell the other factions about the planet. Especially if the 5 major godlord factions knew that there was a divine tomb on that planet, they wouldn't have a problem with it. Boom. 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 Roar. 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 At this moment, roars suddenly came from the void behind them. The gods from the 5 god lords were slightly startled and hurriedly looked behind them. Chapter 2035. 2035. The gods of the infinite were waiting here. It was located at the boundary of the infinite starfield. There was only one life planet in a radius of more than 100,000 kilometers. At this moment, in front of that life planet, 3 enormous divine beasts were pulling an extremely luxurious sedan. At the top of the sedan, a young man was lying on it with his legs crossed. He was eating a fruit that was emitting spiritual energy. Around the void beast carriage, thousands of demigod-level maids and guards were following them. Above the beast carriage, a flag was flying. On the flag was a picture of a plant. They were flying in the void, heading towards the planet in front of them. They were bursting with terrifying power. That's right. The 5 major factions that were attracted by this unbridled power were slightly shocked. Their eyes were flickering as they stared at the flag. Our actions haven't been exposed, right? A god couldn't help but ask with slight nervousness. Impossible. Only those present know of this matter. We haven't even told some ordinary gods. The middle-aged man standing on the flaming greatsword in the fire god palace immediately said, "That planet belongs to the divine leaf god lord. It should be the divine leaf god lord's son heading to that planet." "Don't worry," the middle-aged shopkeeper of the Soaring Heavens Palace said indifferently. "Let's disperse. According to time, that planet should take nearly 2 years to arrive. We'll come here and wait a year later," an elder of the Sacred Hall said. "All right, we'll prepare here a year later." The gods of the 5 great factions nodded and instantly teleported into the distance. "Hey, Uncle Lin, who are those guys?" At this moment, the young man lying on the divine beast Starry Sky sedan sensed the fluctuations coming from that side. He raised his eyebrows and asked the old man driving the divine beast sedan, "Young master, I wonder what those people from the small factions are doing here." The old man swept his gaze over and shook his head. "Sigh, this time father sent me to this remote planet. It's really too miserable. What's on this broken planet?" The young man did not care about that group of people and said helplessly, "Hihi, young master, 20 years will pass very quickly." The old man said indifferently, 20 years can suffocate me to death." The young man's face fell as he raised his head to look at the vast void. "If young master can ignite 3 wisps of divine fire, the old master should let you return early." The old man smiled. However, at another location. A voice that was filled with boundless arrogance resounded throughout the entire starry sky. The voice spread over at least 1,000,000 kilometers. "Fuck, which fellow is even more arrogant than me?" The young man immediately stood up and looked in the direction of the voice. Hong. In his line of sight, a wisp of darkness quickly flew towards his right and soon disappeared. "This fellow runs quite fast." When the young man saw the wisp of darkness quickly disappear, he muttered, "Oh." At this moment, the old man below suddenly stood up, and a grim expression appeared on his face. "Young master, that man is not simple," the old man said with a serious face. "Not simple?" The young man was also slightly surprised. If Uncle Lin said that he was not simple, his strength was definitely not weak. "Jie, I have finally passed through that chaotic star area. Here, I can fly in the sky. Jie, I have obtained the body of the demon dragon. I have a group of evil spirits. Soon, this place will be my world." The young man who was full of devil chi revealed a ferocious and excited expression. This young man was the one who obtained the dragon soul. He had already condensed the body of the devil dragon and controlled more than 20 powerful demons. With the body of the devil dragon, he was confident that he could quickly raise his strength to the eternal God-Lord realm. At that time, he would suppress this starfield, and he would become the king of this starfield. "This is the beginning of my road to hegemony." Devil Dragon Son of Heaven's eyes burned as he flew forward and started to build his invincible path. Soon, I can sense the aura of life. In a month at most, I will be able to enter the Life Star area. My grandson is the true Dragon Son of Heaven. My grandson will become the ancestor of the gods and suppress the entire star area. When the son of the Earth God entered the boundless star area, a short young man was traveling through the starry sky in the chaotic star area. His body sank into the meteorites like a fish. At this moment, his face was also filled with excitement. Before he died, he had already ignited 9 wisps of divine fire. Now, as long as he had enough resources, he was confident that he could recover to the peak. Furthermore, with the body of the Earth Divine Dragon, he was confident that he would be able to reach the level of the Eternal Divine Lord. He could suppress a region and be invincible. Perhaps, soon, a legend would appear in this region. In the vast chaotic starfield, a blue planet was also heading in the direction of the boundless starfield. "Teacher, I'm afraid that my master's soaring heaven's treasured palace will descend on Earth. Perhaps, when we enter the boundless starfield, they will make a move against us." In the underwater dragon palace in the ocean, Ji Lingfei was sitting at a dining table with Wang Xian, Guan Shuqing, and the other girls. Ji Lingfei recalled her master's cold killing intent not long ago and said to Wang Xian worriedly, "Don't worry, let's eat something." Wang Xian smiled at her. "In the boundless galaxy, how is the strength of the Lingxiao treasured palace that used to belong to you? There are also a few forces from the Holy Church. The Hall Master of the skyscraping treasured palace has already ignited 9 wisps of divine fire. Excluding the gods that descended here, there are still about 30 of them. The Hall Master of the Holy Church is about the same strength as the Hall Master of the skyscraping treasured palace. His strength is also about the same. In addition, the throne room of the Fire God Palace, the Pyramid, and the Boundless Galaxy are slightly weaker." Ji Lingfei said to him. "We don't have to worry about this strength. Even if the 5 factions were to join forces, they might not be as strong as the God of Light Wings." Guan Shuqing and the others comforted Ji Lingfei. "That's right. Lingfei, you don't have to worry. As long as the Eternal God Lord doesn't come personally, we don't have to be afraid with Master's Dragon Palace's strength." Xiao Ran comforted her with a smile. "Yeah, I'm just a little worried. After all, the endless starfield is the other side's territory." Ji Lingfei thought for a moment and smiled. Just as Xiao Ran and the Dragon Queen had said, the current Dragon Palace could only be suppressed by the arrival of the 5 major god-level forces in the boundless galaxy. The other forces didn't seem to have anything to worry about either. "Ji Lingfei, tell us about the boundless galaxy after dinner. Earth should be able to reach the boundless galaxy in less than 2 years. Let's understand it in advance." Wang Xian said to her. "Yes, teacher." Ji Lingfei nodded. However, Wang Xian and the rest did not know that the boundless gods were already waiting for them at the entrance of the boundless starfield. Chapter 2036. 2036 was more than a year away, and the boundless galaxy was about to arrive. Inside the chaotic starfield, water-blue planets were shuttling back and forth. They were heading towards the boundless star field with many life planets. The boundless starfield had 700 to 800 life planets and a bunch of void bases. The area of the boundless starfield could not be described by kilometers. Even the distance between the two planets was over 1,000,000 kilometers, and the entire starfield could be described by light years. Other than the life planets, there were tens of thousands of planets and stars in the boundless starfield. In the entire starfield, the 5 great godlords were the most powerful. The 5 great godlords occupied the east, west, south, north, and central areas respectively. The 5 great eternal godlords were not to be offended. Other than these eternal godlords, there were hundreds of other powers. After all, basically, there were gods born on every planet. It was also possible for there to be dozens of gods on powerful planets. As for the 5 eternal masters, each of them controlled only a few dozens of life planets. There were more than 100 of them. Wang Xian, Prime Minister Gui, and a group of leaders of the Dragon Palace sat in the Dragon King's palace and discussed some matters. Right now, they only had a basic understanding of the boundless starfield. Furthermore, this information was obtained from Ji Lingfei. As for the unknown, they had to be fully prepared. Aohe, if you devour the eternal divine kingdom with the light wings, can you upgrade it to the level of the eternal godlord? Wang Xian looked at Aohe and asked him, Dragon King, if I devour the eternal kingdom of light wings, I can upgrade my strength to the peak of the god realm. At that time, I can fight against an expert at level 1 of the eternal lord. Aohe said to him, That's good. As long as we have the strength to fight against the eternal lord, we have nothing to fear. Wang Xian revealed a faint smile on his face as he swept his gaze across the group of leaders. In the entire dragon palace, apart from the leaders, there were 9 wild dragon species, 3 starward dragon species, and 2 thorned dragon species that ignited the divine fire. Apart from these, there were about 75 members from the other combat divisions who ignited the divine fire. Currently, there were a total of 103 members who ignited the divine fire in the Dragon Palace, excluding the group of girls and his clones. Such a large number of godly state members were all nurtured by killing countless space locusts and killing the god of wings of light who had obtained resources from the divine kingdom. Ao Crab, who was at the peak of the Dragon Palace, was followed by Wang Xian himself. Xiao Lan and Ao Chitian were about the same level of strength as him. Ao Chitian had improved after absorbing the god of wings of light's corpse. With the current strength of the Dragon Palace, it was considered a top existence even in the boundless starfield. By the time Ao Crab had devoured the eternal divine kingdom and reached the peak of the godly state, they wouldn't be too afraid of the 5 major god-level forces. Of course, Wang Xian also knew that there was still a huge gap between their strength and the 5 overlords of the boundless galaxy. After all, the 5 major forces had been standing in the starry sky for hundreds of thousands of millions of years. During this 1 year, let all the members cultivate well. When we arrive at the boundless galaxy, we might not be so carefree anymore. Wang Xian said to them. It's the Dragon King. The leaders of the Dragon Palace nodded. Wang Xian waved his hand and walked forward. Hey, our busy man is here. He came to the left and right of the Dragon King's palace. When he walked over, he heard 2 sarcastic voices. Come and take a look at the 2 of you. Wang Xian looked at Hua Erseer and revealed a smile. Mph, if you don't accompany those wives, they will get jealous again. That's right. They still want us to call them mothers. Why don't they take a look at their own age? The 2 little girls said with displeasure on their faces. Wang Xian smiled embarrassedly. He came to the chair in front of their residence and laid down on it. You 2 girls, stop causing trouble for me. Do you still think that I'm not miserable enough? He shook his head slightly and said. You pervert, you're miserable. We're the ones who are miserable. We've taken in a pervert as our father and now we have 9 stepmothers. Hua glared at him. Wang Xian smiled and argued with the 2 girls. In the following period of time, just as everyone expected, the earth had completely calmed down. Usually, Wang Xian and the group of girls were happy and accompanied the 2 little girls. As time passed, the group of girls didn't have too many conflicts with the 2 little girls. Gradually, they became more familiar with each other. In the outside world, Sun Lingxiu and Liu Mengxian often stayed in the Eternal Kingdom at the South Pole to cultivate. Not long after, Liu Mengxian ignited the divine fire and lifted the divine kingdom. Because the eternal God Lord was of the light attribute, many of the treasures he obtained were suitable for Sun Lingxiu. In just a short year, his strength had risen to the realm of 3 wisps of divine fire, far surpassing the other girls. Chen Feiyang's strength had also recovered to the peak of the demigod realm. He only needed to build a divine kingdom to lift it. The students and disciples of the Dragon Gate Academy had cultivated in the eternal divine kingdom for a year, and each of them had received a huge increase in strength. The strength of all the living beings on Earth was much stronger than that on the supernatural continent. A year later, the eternal divine kingdom at the South Pole was devoured by Ao Crab, and the 2 tombs on Earth had completely disappeared. Wang Xian hesitated for a moment and decided to leave the ancient divine kingdoms on Earth. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A year later, at the border of the boundless starfield, numerous huge teams flew over under the leadership of the gods. 5 huge flags fluttered in the void. An incomparably huge temple with an area of more than 10,000 kilometers. Pyramids that were tens of thousands of meters tall. An ocean that covered an area of thousands of kilometers. A sea of fire. Sacred mountains that were emitting holy light. The incomparably huge divine kingdoms carried vast and majestic auras as they sailed in the void. Each banner had around 100,000 followers. Each faction had 100,000 disciples and 5 factions had 500,000 people. None of these 500,000 people were weaker than demigods. In fact, 30% of them had the strength of a demigod rank 5 or above. On every planet, they were definitely considered elites. The strength of these 500,000 people far exceeded that of the 100,000 heavenly soldiers and heavenly generals and the holy warriors. In fact, the 2 were not even on the same level. Let's enter the chaotic region and wait there for about 500 kilometers. The 5 forces gathered. In the sky above the Lingxiao treasured palace, a burly middle-aged man holding a giant hammer, the Lingxiao treasured palace master, glanced at the leaders of the 4 forces around him and said indifferently, "Good. We'll go about 500 kilometers deep. There won't be any danger. We can also avoid people finding out about the situation here." The leaders of the other 4 forces nodded. The powerful forces entered the chaotic star area and immediately began to plan and wait. Chapter 2037. 2037 Earth 2037 was coming. Boom. Boom. The 5 forces had an army of 500,000, and each of them had at least 20 God Realm experts. All the gods added together had a total of 140. When the vast skyscraping treasured palace, the sacred mountain of the sacred hall, the huge pyramid, and the river of stars entered the chaotic space zone. The meteorite, which was tens of millions of meters in diameter, was smashed into pieces. The 5 forces entered the chaotic space zone and flew 500 kilometers forward. Set up a formation immediately. We must be able to predict the arrival of any planet within 10 light years. Don't worry. Leave the formation to the pyramid. We can detect all creatures within 20 light years. That planet will arrive in a year's time at most. Within a year, we cannot let our guard down. A vast voice spread through the void as powerful array formations were set up one after another. The entire chaotic region was enveloped by a vast divine radiance. What are the gods preparing to do? They actually mobilized all of our elites. The 5 major forces have moved out together, and all the gods have arrived. What is the situation, my lords? Surprised voices came from the disciples of the various forces. They had come here without receiving any news. Even after the array had been set up, they could not contact the outside world. More than 10 years ago, we, the Lingxiao treasured palace, and a few other forces seemed to have sent gods to an area where spiritual energy had been restored. Could it be for that planet? Some people guessed in their hearts as they waited quietly. Hey, what's going on? There are actually so many people coming to this godforsaken place. It seems like it was those few factions a year ago. However, what the 5 great factions did not know was that on the planet closest to the chaotic region, a young man was holding a divine artifact and shining it into the void. When he saw this scene, a curious expression appeared on his face. So many people, with such a big fanfare, Searching for treasures? Interesting, interesting. The young man's interest was piqued. His eyes flickered with a luster. With a wave of his arm, a milky white plant covered it. Buzz. The plant trembled slightly and disappeared into the void. The young man immediately flew towards the chaotic star field. Young master. Not far away, Uncle Lin sensed the young man's figure and shook his head. His figure also flickered as he followed closely behind the young man. More than half a year had passed in a flash. The distance between Earth and the boundless galaxy was getting closer and closer. Dragon King, according to the markings on the starry sky map, we have one more day before we enter the boundless galaxy. On the surface of the sea above the Dragon Palace, Prime Minister Gui said slowly to Wang Xian. Yes, one more day. Wang Xian's eyes were flickering. Tell everyone that Earth will enter the boundless galaxy in one more day, he instructed Prime Minister Gui. It's the Dragon King. I'll inform Xiao Ran and the rest. Prime Minister Gui nodded and informed Xiao Ran immediately. In less than half an hour, Xiao Ran announced this matter on the internet. Are we going to the boundless galaxy? Are we going to the other vital star field? We're going to arrive tomorrow. So fast. We're going to enter another star field. Are we going to fight those aliens? I wonder what the boundless star field will look like. I heard that there are many gods crossing the void there, and there's a god lord suppressing an area. If we want to become gods, we have to enter the boundless star field. At that time, we have to fight with the chosen divine sons of many planet. When the news spread across the entire planet, everyone was in an uproar. After more than 10 years, Earth had finally arrived at the boundless star field. Now that the countdown had begun, everyone walked out of the room and looked up into the void, ready to watch the splendor of another world. Some were excited, some were sad, and some were full of fighting spirit. However, they were not too worried about their safety. With the Dragon Gate Academy and the experts of the Dragon Palace here, they weren't too worried. Everyone came to the open space. They could afford to wait for one day. They looked up at the starry sky and the future. These guys have been here for more than half a year. What are they doing? Are they waiting for the treasures to fly over? In the void not far away from Earth, a young man was hiding somewhere, looking at the 5 forces in front of him with a bored face. Only a bored person like him could do such a boring thing. Uncle Lin stood at the side with a speechless expression, protecting the young man. Everyone, the formation has detected a life planet coming over. At this moment, an excited voice suddenly sounded in front of them. The young man was slightly stunned. He immediately took out something that looked like a telescope and looked over curiously. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, the skyscraping treasured palace, the pyramid, the sacred mountain, the ocean, and the sea of fire that were standing in the void immediately headed toward a certain place. Are they here? At this moment, many gods flew out of the divine kingdom's palace. Their faces were filled with excitement and fervent expressions. They're here. They'll arrive in this direction in 7 to 8 hours at most. On the top of a pyramid, an old man roared in a low voice with burning eyes. 7 or 8 hours? Over 100 vast figures gathered together, their faces filled with excitement. The divine tomb. If we can enter the divine tomb and obtain the inheritance of the eternal God Lord. The gods looked at each other, their eyes filled with fanaticism. Next, it was time for them to enjoy the fruits. There's a powerful person on this planet called the Dragon Palace. We'll get rid of them first. Also, what should we do with the billions of lives on this planet? One of the gods on the pyramid asked with sparkling eyes. Leave no one alive. For the time being, no one can know about the divine tombs. A flame giant's deep and cold voice came from within the sea of fire. The eyes of the surrounding gods flickered, and they did not reply. Clearly, everyone agreed with his words. For the sake of this planet, they had lost many gods. Moreover, in their eyes, that group of mortals were nothing more than ants. All factions, get ready. When that planet arrives, surround it. Do not let even a fly fly out. The palace master of the Lingxiao treasured palace said with a cold expression. All right. The other gods nodded and immediately passed down the message to the 500,000 strong army. Yes, great gods. Qi Tian's shout rang out, and everyone's eyes sparkled. After more than half a year, they had a detailed understanding of this operation. More than 100 gods from the 5 major factions and 500,000 experts at the demigod level and above looked at the void in front of them. Time passed bit by bit. 7 hours later, a planet slowly appeared in their line of sight. Everyone's pupils constricted slightly. Earth was here. Chapter 2038. 2038, the terrified and despairing gods won. Earth was coming. Their fruit, their opportunity, their hope to become the eternal God Lord, was coming. Seeing the sky-blue planet, the gods revealed excited and fervent expressions. As long as they took this planet, their era in the endless star field might be coming. Whether or not they could become the 6th great God Lord force in the endless star field would depend on this one time. The leaders of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, the Sacred Hall, the Pyramid, the Fire God Palace, and the endless sea of stars revealed a crazed look in their eyes. Hall Master, when the planet arrives, you go to the divine tomb. I'll take care of the rest. In the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, Elder Li said respectfully to the Hall Master of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace. All right, I'll leave the rest to you. Clean it up as soon as possible and then you can go to the other god tomb. The Palace Master nodded slowly and said, Yes, Palace Master. Hearing his words, Elder Li's eyes revealed a trace of fervor. Wait a moment. The other 4 forces also transmitted their voices. 2 god tombs and 5 forces. At the end, they would definitely start a fight or even a fight. However, for the sake of the shrines, they would fight even if they had to die. The atmosphere became solemn. Everyone was staring at the planet in front of them. Hey, what's that in the void in front of us? What's that? Could it be the boundless star field in front of us? What's that huge palace, the sea of stars, and the sea of fire? When Earth was getting closer and closer, everyone on Earth looked up at the void. When they saw the faintly enormous palace in front of them, the holy mountain that was emitting light, the sea of fire that contained endless flames, and the sea of stars, everyone's faces were filled with shock. Was this the world of the endless starfield? That's the divine kingdom of the Palace Master of the Soaring Heavens Treasured Palace. That's the divine kingdom. Those holy mountains are the holy church, and that sea of fire and the sea of stars, those are the powers of the Fire God Palace and the endless sea of stars. However, at this moment, exclamations rang out one after another. The disciples who had descended with the gods immediately recognized those terrifying powers. Among them, there were even many families that were disciples of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace's Sacred Hall. When they saw the enormous Lingxiao Treasured Palace in the sky, some people were shocked while others were secretly delighted. However, very soon, some people couldn't laugh anymore. Is it the faction that descended here from the endless starfield? What are they doing? Are they attacking us? They should be attacking us. Absolutely. How strong are they? Are they as strong as the God Lord of Light Wings? Hearing the disciples' exclamations, the others said with sparkling eyes. Hearing these words, the disciples who were secretly delighted turned stiff. According to their estimations, the skyscraping treasured palace, the sacred hall, and a few other forces combined might not even be as terrifying as that God Lord Lightwing. Some of them opened their mouths and stared ahead quietly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, everyone saw figures rapidly flying toward the void from the direction of the Ocean Dragon Palace and the Dragon Gate Academy. There were more than 20,000 figures from the Ocean Dragon Palace and more than 500 figures from the Dragon Gate Academy. All of them were at least at the demigod level. Teacher, it's the Lingxiao Treasured Palace, the Holy Hall, and the others. They are the 5 powers who descended here previously. That huge divine kingdom is the divine kingdom of the Lingxiao Treasured Palace's Hall Master. They are all here. All of them are here. Ji Lingfei's face was filled with anxiety and worry. She came to Wang Xian's side and said immediately, "All of them are here. They are actually waiting for us here in advance." Wang Xian's eyes sparkled as he stared at everyone in the void in front of him. At the same time, numerous gazes landed on them. There was a hint of fanaticism, disdain, and coldness in each of their gazes. Boom, boom, boom. At the same time, Waves of mighty divine might covered this area. Boom, boom, boom. In the next moment, everyone on earth was shocked to discover that in the void in front of them, within the huge palace, sacred mountain, and sea of fire, figures were lined up neatly from the void as they charged towards them. No, they weren't charging over, they were surrounding them. The powerful aura and terrifying pressure caused everyone's expressions to change drastically. There are so many of them, and this terrifying pressure doesn't come with good intentions. What are they trying to do? On the ground, countless people cried out in alarm. One by one, figures could be seen with the naked eye as they surrounded Earth. Some rode on majestic demonic beasts, while others stepped on their weapons as they flew through the void. Looking at the hundreds of thousands of figures, everyone felt a chill in their heart. Buzz. At this moment, the entire Earth suddenly trembled violently. In the void, invisible energy appeared around the Earth. The terrifying energy caused the entire Earth to suddenly stop in the void. Some people couldn't help but stagger as shock appeared on their faces. They forced Earth to stop. Everyone was slightly shocked. Wang Xian looked at his surroundings and his face was filled with indifference. He raised his head slightly and looked at the gods that were flying towards him. We have been waiting here for more than half a year. They are finally here. Haha, they are finally here. An extremely excited voice came from the void in front of them. An old man standing on top of a pyramid shouted excitedly. At this moment, more than 100 gods flew towards Earth. Their vast auras charged over. They were filled with fanaticism. Oh! At this moment, Elder Li, who was standing beside the palace master of the Lingxiao treasured palace, swept his gaze around. His gaze locked onto Ji Lingfei, who was standing in the void, and a terrifying killing intent shot out from his eyes. Evil disciple, I will personally clean up the sect today. A cold voice came out from his mouth as he shouted at Ji Lingfei. They are just a bunch of ants from the ruins. So what if they have some strength? Today, I will clean up all of them. An elder from the Holy Church looked at Wang Xian and the rest who were floating in the sky above Earth and said indifferently. His voice was filled with disdain and contempt. Even though all the gods that they had descended upon had been killed, they still did not put the people on that planet in their eyes. This time, the 5 of them had come out in full force. With the combined strength of the 5 of them, in the entire boundless galaxy, other than the 5 god-level forces, there were not many who could contend against them. Wipe them all out. Let's enter the divine tomb. The palace master of the Lingxiao treasured palace didn't even look at Wang Xian and the rest. Instead, he swept his gaze over to Earth. The divine tomb was their true goal. As for the group of people in front of them, they would kill them immediately. Kill everyone on the entire planet. Don't let any of them go. In the sea of fire, a fire giant roared coldly. Chapter 2039. 2039 Boundless Gods 2. Boom. 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 When the flame giant's cold roar sounded from the sea of fire, a terrifying killing intent shot out from the bodies of all the experts surrounding Earth. Killing them is a piece of cake. This should be the planet that the gods and some disciples descended on. I heard that the spiritual energy has recovered and a divine kingdom has appeared. It shouldn't be too easy to destroy them. The disciples of the 5 major forces surrounding the planet had a relaxed expression on their faces. They were looking down at Earth from above. Their bodies were filled with killing intent as they scanned the planet wantonly. At the same time, they were also extremely astonished. Divine tomb? What divine tomb? Could it be the divine tomb of the eternal God Lord? When Wang Xian heard the words of the flaming giant, a hint of cold killing intent flashed across his eyes. Hey, Uncle Lin, isn't that the endless chaotic starfield in front of us? Why did a planet suddenly appear out of nowhere? This bunch of people have been waiting for more than half a year just to see this planet. At this moment, a young man was lying on a floating meteorite behind the 5 major forces. He was eating fruits while watching the show. God's tomb. At this moment, the old man seemed to have not heard him. He murmured and his eyes were shining. What God's tomb? Uncle Lin, what happened to you? The young man was slightly stunned and looked at the old man curiously. Young master, we seem to have found a shocking treasure. Uncle Lin's breathing was a little hurried. If it is really like what the palace master of Lingxiao Treasured Palace said, God's tomb. The God's tomb, the tomb of the eternal God Lord? No way, that planet has the tomb of the eternal God Lord. The young man reacted and widened his eyes, his face full of shock. Uncle Lin shook his head, not daring to be sure. If there really is a God's tomb here, I'll tell Father, and Father will tell great-grandfather that I've done a great deed. I don't have to stay in this God-forsaken place at all. And when the time comes, great-grandfather will definitely reward me with many treasures. The young man was excited, and his face was filled with excitement. If there really is a divine tomb, young master will not only do a great deed. Perhaps he'll be able to add another eternal God Master to our eternal divine leaf, Uncle Lin also said with incomparable excitement. At this moment, the young man trembled. Evil disciple, I'll clean you up first. At this moment, in the void in front of them, an incomparably cold voice sounded. Old Li's entire body was like a terrifying tornado, and the distance of more than 100,000 meters disappeared in the blink of an eye. He held a scepter in his hand and smashed it towards Ji Lingfei's head. All of you, get rid of these ants as soon as possible. Then, go to the tomb of the gods. The Hall Master of the Sacred Hall spoke to the surrounding gods and flew straight towards Earth. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At the same time, the leaders of the other four forces also flew towards Earth at a rapid speed. Kill. The other gods locked onto Wang Xian and the rest and roared loudly. Kill. The 500,000 disciples surrounding them also started to move and charged towards Earth. Evil disciple, die. Elder Li, who was charging at the front, was only 1,000 meters away from Ji Lingfei. The wind attribute divine weapon scepter in his hand emitted a terrifying glow. Master, I'm sorry. Ji Lingfei looked at her master and sighed helplessly. Then, she slowly closed her eyes. When he closed his eyes, a piercing sound was heard. Ao Crab, who was standing beside Wang Xian, raised his right arm. His entire right arm turned into a sharp black claw. The huge claw extended for 1,000 meters and directly penetrated Elder Li's body. What? At this moment, Elder Li, who was overwhelmed by intense pain, was filled with shock and horror on his face, which was filled with killing intent. At this moment, he felt the sharp claws that had pierced through him slowly grow bigger and completely wrap around him. How is this possible? He couldn't help but let out a low growl. His eyes instantly turned blood red as he stared at his body that had been pierced through. He was shocked. He was a god that had ignited 8 wisps of divine fire, yet his body had been pierced through in an instant. Even though he had been very careless just now, being able to penetrate his body in an instant still caused his face to be filled with shock. No, no, no. The threat of death enveloped his body as he shouted out in terror. At this moment, all the gods rushing over were completely stunned. They looked at Elder Li, whose body had been penetrated, with a face full of astonishment. Elder Li was an elder of the Lingxiao Treasure Hall, and he was also the deputy hall master of the Lingxiao Treasure Hall. His strength was second only to their hall master and the hall master of the Holy Church. However, in the instant just now, his body had been penetrated. Upon hearing his horrifying screams, the pupils of the gods contracted slightly. Everyone, don't be in such a hurry to enter Earth. At this moment, Wang Xian looked at the 5 leaders who were flying toward Earth and said faintly. His face was filled with smiles. Just like the expressions of the group of gods just now, his face and eyes were filled with disdain and contempt at this moment. Hallmaster, please save me. A terrified, begging voice sounded. Without needing Wang Xian to say anything, the Hall Master of the Lingxiao Treasure Hall, the Hall Master of the Saint Hall, and the others also stiffened. They looked in Elder Li's direction with an embarrassed expression. TSK, a god with 8 wisps of divine fire wants to kill us in front of us. And the gods of the boundless galaxy, is Earth something you can do as you please? The sharp thorn in Ao Crab's hand slowly grew longer, completely enveloping Elder Li. He wanted to escape with a face full of fear, but to his horror, he realized that he couldn't break free from Ao Crab's sharp claws at all. The current Ao Crab could fight against a level 1 eternal god lord with his full power. He could easily kill a god with 8 wisps of divine fire. His strength. Seeing that Elder Li could not break free even with all his might, the temple master of the Lingxiao treasured palace had a grave expression. Beside him, the expressions of the leaders of the sacred hall's fire god palace changed slightly, and they stopped in the air. How is this possible? How can a small, ruined earth have such an expert? The surrounding gods from the 5 great factions widened their eyes as they looked at this scene in disbelief. This was merely a planet that had been recovering its spiritual energy for more than 10 years. To be able to produce a god that was comparable to 6 or 7 wisps of divine fire was already heaven-defying. However, the person who had attacked had actually killed Elder Li, who had 8 wisps of divine fire, in an instant. Everyone took a deep breath, and a grave expression appeared on their faces. Ah! At this moment, an extremely tragic and desperate cry rang out. Everyone from the 5 major factions immediately looked over. With a clench of his sharp claws, Elder Li, who had 8 wisps of divine fire, was completely dead. An expert who belonged to a faction in the boundless galaxy had died just like that. Everyone's expression changed drastically, and the atmosphere instantly became strained. Wang Xian swept his gaze across all of them, and the corner of his lips curled up slightly. Chapter 2040. 2040 Infinite Gods 3 in Terror and Despair. Buzz. In the chaotic starfield, the wailing of heaven and earth could be heard. The austere atmosphere slowly became a little strange. The leaders of the 5 forces on the right stared at Wang Xian and the rest with an awkward expression. Elder Li's death was clearly beyond everyone's expectations. In their opinion, even if this planet that flew over from the ruins had killed the gods that they had descended upon, its strength was at most 6 to 7 wisps of divine fire. From their point of view, this was already at the peak. However, now, a peak expert with 8 wisps of divine fire had been killed. This was something that they had never expected. Hey! It's not a one-sided killing. This is interesting. At the position behind them, the youth and Uncle Lin were hiding under a meteorite. When they saw a god with 8 wisps of divine fire die, they were slightly shocked. We really didn't expect this. No wonder the gods who descended from our Lingxiao treasured palace died in your hand. On the right of the center of the battlefield, the Lingxiao treasured palace master who was about to directly enter Earth gripped the war hammer in his hand tightly and growled in a cold voice. Buzz. As he spoke, the war hammer in his hand rotated, and a terrifying air wave spread out in all directions. Kill them first, then we'll go to the graveyard of the gods. He looked at the leaders around him and said indifferently. All right. The hall master of the sacred hall and the other 3 leaders nodded. Their gazes locked onto Ao Crab, and their eyes were filled with dense killing intent. Although the strength of the other party had completely exceeded their expectations, they were not too afraid. They really didn't believe that their side's hundreds of gods and leaders weren't a match for the other party. I want to see just how much strength they have. The hall master of the sacred hall revealed a cold expression as he exchanged a glance with the hall master of the Lingxiao treasured palace. Wang. The hall master of the Lingxiao treasured palace slowly raised the war hammer in his hand and coldly spat, "Kill him." Okay, let's end this quickly. The temple master of the sacred hall smiled and nodded lightly. As a powerful force that had stood in the boundless star field for hundreds of thousands of years, as the leader, they had already ignited 9 wisps of divine fire. With the entire force as their foundation, they controlled many resources and had powerful divine weapons in their hands. Even the middle-aged man who had instantly killed Elder Li had ignited 9 wisps of divine fire. They were not afraid. Holy light, judgment. The hall master of the sacred hall raised the holy scepter in his hand. In an instant, streams of holy light seemed to streak across the sky behind him. Each stream of holy light was more than 10 meters thick and a few hundred kilometers long. They crisscrossed and covered Wang Xian and the rest. Void hammer, tremor. The hall master of the Lingxiao treasured palace raised the war hammer in his hand and dropped it into the void. Bang! 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 The entire void seemed to have exploded. Countless cyan-colored tremors in the void swept towards Wang Xian and the rest. The attacks of the 2 of them enveloped all of them together. Dragon King, leave the 5 of them to me. He saw their attacks and a terrifying fighting spirit erupted from his body. He moved his body and transformed into a devouring dragon that was 20,000 meters in size. Roar. A roar sounded from the side. He waved his tail and an earthen yellow energy swept forward. Boom. The earthen yellow energy swept past and the holy light and vibrations were all devoured by the earthen yellow energy. None of you can leave today. He roared and moved, instantly appearing in front of the palace lord. His dragon claw clawed at him. You're courting death. Seeing that his attack was blocked, the palace lord raised the war hammer in his hand. Waves of green energy gathered on the war hammer and met Crab's dragon claw without any fear. Boom. A huge explosion sounded, and the impact of the war hammer covered an area of 100 kilometers. Bang. However, the moment the hammer collided with Crab's dragon claw, the temple master's expression changed drastically. A terrifying power sent him flying backward. A large amount of blood oozed out from his arm. What? The temple master's expression changed drastically, and fear appeared on his face. Such powerful strength. The temple master's expression changed slightly when he saw this. He tapped the holy scepter in his hand lightly, and a majestic power of light entered his body, healing his injuries. Boom. 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 Following that, the hall master of the sacred hall released a light shadow, a light wing, and a light armor. Rays of light fell on the body of the hall master of the Lingxiao treasure hall, condensing into light wings and light armor on his body. This guy is very strong. Let's attack together. The expression of the hall master of the Lingxiao treasure hall changed slightly as he shouted at the other leaders. Attack! A fire giant, an old man covered in white cloth, and a middle-aged man with huge waves behind him. The three of them had solemn expressions. An expert who could send Zhon Lingtian flying with a single strike was definitely stronger than them. Lingxiao Divine Kingdom, Lingxiao Palace. The Lingxiao Hall Master was clad in light armor and had light wings on his back. He stared coldly at Crab and roared once again. Buzz! 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 The huge Divine Kingdom within a radius of dozens of kilometers emitted a green light. Beams of wind attribute imperial palaces flew towards him and slowly rotated around him. Shatter! He roared and the war hammer in his hand smashed towards the imperial palaces. Boom! The war hammer landed on the imperial palaces and the imperial palaces smashed towards Crab. The terrifying throne was like a meteorite. Go! Boom boom boom! A flaming meteorite condensed from flames, a white void cloth, and a giant void beast condensed from water elements all attacked Crab. With just you guys. Crab saw their attacks, and a look of contempt appeared in his eyes. He spread his enormous wings and flapped them quickly. Boom! 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 Streams of black soil instantly covered all their attacks. The black soil was like a swamp, melting and devouring streams of energy attacks. This is bad. The faces of the temple master of the Lingxiao treasured palace and the hall master of the Saint Hall changed slightly when they saw that their attacks were easily blocked again. Kill them all. Leave no one alive. At this moment, Wang Xian glanced at Crab and the others from the front. He stared at the surroundings and gave a stern order. Yes, leave no one alive. Anyone who dares to invade us, kill them all. The group of Dragon Palace leaders revealed a violent killing intent. Kill. Chitian raised the ocean-pacifying divine needle in his hand and charged straight at the gods in front. The rest of the godly state Dragon Palace members followed closely behind. The violent and terrifying pressure charged at the gods in front. Kill. The 20,000 members of the Dragon Palace also started to move. They stared at the 500,000 demigod-level experts around them as they charged forward.